They called the white snowfield a grave the world forgot, beasts that dissolve glaciers, and rules no mortal ought to break. Catal was born inside that frozen hell. He survived where emperors failed, fought things that shattered legend, and lived by one stubborn hope, to walk out alive into a world of green and sun. When a mercenary caravan stumbles into his path, the meeting that follows changes everything. A noble girl named Melina, fleeing her family's ruin, offers him a crest and a chance to leave the snow behind. He walks into their world like an avalanche, but freedom demands a price. To pass the border, he must prove himself, join strangers, and clear a dungeon meant to crush the unworthy. He obliterates the boss, smashes locks with raw strength, and leaves the others staring in disbelief. Word spreads fast. Guards bring him before Lord Barkin. Even a heretic inquisitor arrives, eyes wide, because the things Catal touched in the snow may be tied to darker prophecies. From frozen exile to city streets, Catal's story is simple and terrible. A man who escaped death returns with the hunger of someone who has seen the abyss, and the power to change the world that forgot him.
The white snowfield was believed to be the very heart of the world. The land is filled with fearsome creatures that roam its endless snowy plains. One of the most formidable among them is an enormous white serpent, notorious for consuming entire glaciers. A massive gray bear had the power to shake the earth with its steps, while a bewitched rat spread corruption and filth throughout the oceans. Despite the countless terrors within those walls, there was once an emperor who managed to flee from that very place and spoke of it afterward. It became clear that the true peril in that place did not come from the monsters. Nestled deep within the vast white expanse of the snowy field, a man faces off against a terrifying creature that resembles a giant scorpion. The character launches into an intense fight with the creature, ultimately defeating it through a series of quick, decisive blows. Once the battle ended, one of his companions looked at him with contempt, thinking that his actions perfectly matched the reputation of a barbarian, someone who proudly displays their lack of knowledge as though it were something to be proud of. The silver-haired youth complained inwardly about the endless hours wasted with these clueless people. The girl, with genuine curiosity, wondered aloud what the word ignorance meant and if it was something edible. Hearing this, he let out a weary sigh and told her to just drop the subject. In a different moment, he chastised them for consuming the food he had clearly forbidden, reminding them of his warning that disobeying could lead to their deaths. He marvels at the incredible speed with which they consumed all the food, noting that it was gone in under a week. Both the girl and the bald man interpreted his remarks as a compliment, viewing their actions as a commendable feat. Without warning, the bald man becomes sick. Afterward, the person loses consciousness and falls to the ground. The girl, overcome with panic, desperately attempts to rouse him, her voice rising in terrified screams. In the middle of the turmoil, the hero reflects internally, realizing that this was never the outcome he had hoped for. His thoughts drifted to earlier days, when he yearned to escape into a magical realm brimming with marvels. Driven by this desire, he left his job behind and set out on a grand adventure, eventually scaling the tallest mountain in the world. They arrived at the planet's core and continued their journey until they reached its southernmost tip. Despite his hopes, nothing changed. Each night he offered up quiet prayers, slowly understanding that real life was nothing like the stories he dreamed about. Still, he longed to open his eyes and find himself surrounded by the magic of a make-believe world. One day, his wishes finally came true. The story moves to an earlier time, showing a man trembling in the harsh, icy air. Nearby, his companion suggests that he should bundle up with additional furs to avoid succumbing to the freezing temperatures. The group revealed themselves as mercenaries under the command of a captain, assigned the dangerous mission of traversing the white snowfield. Among them, a man voiced his frustration, insisting the journey was a death sentence regardless of the promised riches, and he called the plan to cross such a perilous place sheer insanity. The captain signals for everyone to quiet down. He reminded the group that everyone had consented to take on this mission together. In response, the man explained that none of them had anticipated just how severe and frigid the conditions would be. Within the cozy confines of the carriage, an older servant turned to a young woman from the esteemed Akasha family and inquired about her well-being. She responds by assuring him that she feels all right. Beyond the walls, the guards grumbling about the bitter cold reached the servant's ears, leading the servant to silently curse them for their disrespect. Stood up for the group, instructing her servant to show more kindness. She reminded the servant that these individuals were the only ones willing to protect them as they traveled through the vast, snowy landscape. Afterwards, remarked that it must be unbearably cold outside, and proposed that they invite the guards indoors. The servant's plea, cautioning her that she was already aware of the dangers lurking within the white expanse of snow, assumes that he is referring to the monsters. The servant started recounting a tale from ancient times, describing an emperor whose greatest desire was to rule over all lands. This emperor set his sights on the vast white snowfield, believing that conquering it would help him fulfill his dream of world domination. The emperor personally ventured into the snowy wasteland, bringing along his most most skilled warriors and troops. Years later, the emperor's once mighty empire crumbled into obscurity, leaving him to come back alone, having lost every warrior and soldier who once stood by his side. He appeared much older than his years, his words rambling with the despair of someone whose sanity had slipped away, as he insisted that creatures truly haunted the snowy wilderness. He explained that in his opinion the greatest threat in that place was not any fearsome creature, but rather the barbarian himself. He compared the place to a living hell, insisting that no one ever made it out alive. The servant attempts to explain that the story is nothing more than a myth, however, maintained that the emperor's statements were significant, pointing out that many of the beings the emperor mentioned were eventually found to be real. The servant's lips curved into a smile as he remarked that, even so, not a single person had ever reported witnessing a barbarian. Acknowledges the truth in his words. Beyond the camp, the mercenary captain abruptly signaled for the group to stop, drawing their attention to a mysterious shape appearing on the distant horizon. The falling snow obscured the distant horizon, making it impossible for anyone to distinguish the figure standing far away. The captain informs the crew that although the approaching newcomer is not large, the troubling part is that it is coming directly toward their position. A wave of surprise and anticipation sweeps through the crowd. As the mysterious shape drew nearer, it became clear to them that it was, in fact, a person. The true surprise unfolds when the group realizes he is a barbarian, causing fear to ripple through the ranks of the mercenaries. The barbarian walked over to the group and began to explain that he had left for a walk because he found the presence of the other barbarians unbearable. Hailing from the Akan tribe, revealed both his identity and astonishment upon encountering unfamiliar faces in the snowy expanse, viewing the unexpected meeting as a fortunate event. Speculated that the individuals were likely mercenaries hired to guard a merchant caravan. He advised them to retreat, although he felt uncertain that they would heed his warning. He then inquires whether their boss is inside the carriage parked close by. Afterwards, he caught them off guard with an unexpected smile and expressed his own interest in joining their team. The mercenaries stare in shock, their faces filled with bewilderment as they struggle to understand his intentions. Explains his intentions, making it clear that he intends to assist the group in getting across the snowfield. The mercenaries eyed the renowned barbarian with caution, puzzled by his request for employment and questioning if his intentions were truly as harmless as they seemed. One among them even considered the possibility that he might not be an enemy after all. Addressed the silent uncertainty in the group, assuring them that if his intentions had been dangerous, none of them would still be alive. One of the mercenaries, uncertainty evident in his expression, turned to his captain and waited for the leader's judgment. Within the carriage, and the servant listened quietly to the discussion taking place nearby. The captain informed that the barbarian was seeking employment as a mercenary and then turned to her, awaiting her choice. The servant approached the mercenary captain, seeking his thoughts on what might happen if a fight were to break out. In response, the captain firmly cautioned against allowing such a conflict to take place. After considering the information, resolved to accept the offer and instructed the captain to relay their agreement to the barbarian. The captain nodded in acknowledgement of her choice, then turned away to relay the terms they had settled on to the waiting barbarian. Reacts with delight upon receiving the wonderful news. Without warning, moves straight toward the carriage, leaving the captain both startled and filled with dread. Reassures him that fear is unnecessary, explaining that they are merely staff members and that any real discussion should be had with the employer personally. The captain made it clear that any suspicious behavior would be met with immediate consequences. Kept quiet as a nervous mercenary turned to the captain, expressing his uncertainty about whether allowing to meet her was truly the correct decision. A different mercenary questioned why they, as guards, made no effort to halt him, but his partner merely laughed, finding the notion of stopping him utterly absurd. Inside the room, the servant grew anxious when he saw getting ready to leave, but she reassured him and urged him to stay composed. Called out from outside, requesting permission to enter, and the unexpected sound startled. Once she regains her composure, she allows him to come inside. Within the carriage, attempts to reassure the servant, expressing his hope that the servant feels more at ease and insisting that he means no harm to anyone present. A wave of realization swept over, as she recognized that the famed barbarian was standing directly before her. She offers him a hesitant greeting, while responds with a composed and gentle acknowledgement. Observed the cozy atmosphere inside the carriage, reflecting on how challenging it was to keep such warmth in the middle of a snowy landscape. Revealed that the gentle heat was the result of magic and appeared pleased, as though he had already guessed that such things were possible in this realm. Quickly addresses the situation, making it clear that the area poses serious threats and the current mercenaries offer little hope for survival. Because of this, he decides to assume responsibility for keeping everyone safe. He mentions that he has a requirement, prompting to inquire about his specific request, discloses his ailment and shares details he has learned from beyond the snowy plains, focusing on the unique insights she holds. Wondered what he wanted from her, while calmly promised that she had nothing to fear and would not lose anything. Understood there were no alternatives left for her, so she reluctantly accepted the situation. Satisfied with the arrangement, inquired about the other person's name. Revealed her identity, stating she belonged to the House of Akasha. He responded by stating his name was, and conveyed that he looked forward to collaborating with her. The story moves into his mind, revealing that he had always wished to escape to a magical world, but instead found himself suddenly transformed into a barbarian, stranded in a frozen wasteland with no opportunity to grasp how it happened. He recalls a world filled only with freezing winds and relentless, fearsome creatures, where he once guided a tribe through constant battles for survival, facing each hardship with a sense of hopelessness. For years beyond measure, he made repeated attempts to escape the desolate expanse of the snowfield. However, a mysterious force manifested in the form of an unfinished quest, trapping him within the area until he managed to fulfill its requirements and earn his release. Right when he was on the verge of surrendering, outsiders occasionally showed up, leaving him puzzled about what could possibly draw anyone to a place as dreadful as this. Came to understand that beyond the desolate snowy wasteland lay a realm filled with the enchantment and wonder he had always dreamed about. From that point forward, he dedicated himself to working hard, driven not only by the need to survive but also by his determination to escape. He recalled the times he defeated countless monsters and accomplished task after task, all fueled by his hope of eventually escaping. Because he is unable to leave this place, any news brought to him by outsiders holds immense value. Most of the people he had encountered up to this point had either reacted with fear and attempted to attack him, or lost their sanity altogether. He realizes it has been a long time since he last spoke with someone refined, and notices that interacting with soothes his mind after enduring the company of uncultured people. The story shifts back to the present, with figuring out that they are carrying weapons. Caught off guard, expresses surprise and wonders how managed to figure it out. He points out that the noises of blades clashing inside the carriages are impossible to miss, and wonders aloud if a battle is happening beyond their view. Acknowledged the ongoing conflict between the Empire and the Kingdom, while observed that unrest extended beyond their borders, suggesting the outside world was far from calm. Remarked that although the powerful Empire advanced with overwhelming forces, the Kingdom remained steadfast and refused to surrender. It was said that skilled and legendary heroes stood guard along the borders, ensuring their safety. Grew more interested upon hearing these terms, and he wondered aloud about the source of their power. Wondered aloud whether he was unfamiliar with mysticism, prompting him to reveal that he had never ventured beyond this place. Although confessed that she was not certain about the specifics, she started to share what she knew. She explains that a rare force known as mysticism exists in their world, and only a select few individuals are able to sense or harness its abilities. People in this world are assigned specific ranks based on their abilities. The third rank is designated for those whose skills are limited to merely detecting mystical energies. Those placed in the second rank are individuals capable of wielding this power themselves. Those at the highest rank possess the ability to express their power as mana or aura, a trait commonly seen among knights, mages, and those who control the elements. She goes on to say that any ranks higher than that don't really matter anymore, since those individuals are so powerful that humans can't even begin to understand them. She mentions the Transcendent rank, an extraordinary group who can wield mystic powers at will, with the might to tear apart the sky and the ground, and notes that the is counted among them. In the end, the hero appears as a legendary figure, possessing powers that surpass mere mastery of mystical forces, allowing them to shape the very fabric of reality. Finished her explanation, pointing out that someone ranked third still held significant power within a small community. Upon learning all this information, expressed a desire to meet the individuals in question, which left feeling confused and uncertain. Could no longer recall the length of time he had been confined in this place. His only focus was on struggling to stay alive. He finds himself stranded in a snowy landscape within a fantastical realm, with no way to break free from it. He longed to escape the endless stretch of snow surrounding him. He firmly reminds himself that he needs to leave, repeating this thought with determination. Continued her conversation, questioning about whether he was the legendary barbarian. Responded ambiguously, suggesting it was possible, and from the look on her face, he realized that she already knew about him. She acknowledges the existence of a legend surrounding him, leaving taken aback by the revelation. Let out a laugh when it dawned on him that the crazed stranger he had encountered earlier was actually the legendary emperor. He went on to reassure, explaining that her legend was probably based on fact, since someone like that had indeed visited this place many years before. Shifted the conversation away from its previous topic. Their curiosity piqued about the reason behind moving so many weapons across the perilous, snow-covered landscape. When inquires about the purpose of her travels, explains that they require a significant amount of money. She reveals that her family, long involved in the trading business, has fallen deep into debt because jealous competitors have plotted against them. The purpose of their journey was to keep their family from falling apart. Quickly figures out that her strategy for settling the debts involves selling weapons to the kingdom, currently in conflict with the Empire. Is caught off guard by how easily he uncovers her intentions. Shared his thoughts, recalling how she had pointed out that the Empire always fought with overwhelming forces, which showed they had plenty of weapons. This suggested that the kingdom was the one in need of more arms. He then reflected on how, in situations where there aren't enough supplies but many people want them, the cost naturally goes up. He reasons that, even without knowing how valuable things are beyond the snowfield, the potential reward justifies the danger of making the journey. He reasons that their choice of such a perilous path means no safer routes exist to the kingdom, implying that their land must border directly on the Empire's. Acknowledges that his reasoning is accurate. Reels in disbelief at his cleverness, unable to reconcile this with the rumors she'd heard of the infamous Barbarian, who is said to be nothing more than a brutal fool. Confusion stirs within her as she begins to question who he really is. Without warning, the carriage lurched with intense force, causing the servant to let out a startled shout. Remains composed as they inform the group about the arrival of unexpected visitors. Beyond the walls, an enormous misshapen creature suddenly emerged in front of the group of mercenaries. They realized that the substance is actually a black slime. Wondered aloud whether that was the creature's name. Nodded in response, explaining that the monster had already been documented in the archives. She explains that over the years, countless skilled adventurers have braved the snowfields. Although only a small number survived, they documented the monsters they faced, and descriptions of the black slime can be found in nearly all of their accounts. She then turns to, wondering aloud if he is also familiar with it. Casually acknowledges his familiarity with the item, remarking that they are chewy snacks and considering them a satisfactory meal. Recoils in shock, unable to believe what she's hearing, and demands to know whether he actually consumes them. He offered her the chance to taste one and proposed that they go hunting together, but she quickly declined, clearly flustered. The dark ooze gathered itself, readying for an assault. Everyone's attention turned to, hoping she would know what to do. Explains that he has made an agreement with them to ensure their safety, promising to step in only if they truly face a serious threat. He assures them that they are capable of dealing with the situation on their own, while emphasizing that it is crucial for him to personally evaluate the strength of forces beyond their current environment. The creature lunged at the group of mercenaries, launching its assault without warning. The captain directed his soldiers to lift their shields in preparation. The mercenaries fought desperately, barely managing to withstand the monster's overwhelming strength. One member of the group leaped forward, determined to deliver the final blow to the monster. He is easily tossed aside, as if he were nothing more than a bug, and frustration fills him as he silently blames the creature's overwhelming power. The captain suddenly recalled a crucial detail and quickly called out the strategy, clarifying to his team that the black slime was limited to moving in straight paths. He instructed his soldiers to spread out and synchronize their assault. The soldiers quickly acknowledged the command, signaling that they comprehend the revised strategy. The mercenaries followed the captain's strategy with exactness, skillfully avoiding the black slime's strikes while landing their own attacks in perfect unison. The creature howled in agony as their well-timed assault pressed down upon it. They pressed on with their stabbing, showing no signs of stopping. The captain encourages the team to continue their assault relentlessly, insisting that they do not pause or hesitate. Realizing that ordinary strikes have no effect, the captain instructs his squad to focus their efforts on locating and attacking the monster's hidden core. The captain raises his shining sword and brings it down with force, slicing straight through the slime's body. The creature's crimson core bursts apart, causing its form to dissolve into a melting mass. The mercenaries, breathless from the battle, rejoiced in their hard-won triumph. They could hardly believe that they had truly managed to overcome it. Their joy fades quickly when a massive white wolf emerges without warning, interrupting their moment of triumph. The mercenaries sprang into action against the unexpected enemies, and one urgently instructed the others to target their opponents' necks. One member of the group suddenly lunged at the wolf, catching it by surprise. Following the fight, a mercenary, sounding rather self-assured, remarked that the white snowfield was not as perilous as people claimed, suggesting that the tales about its dangers had likely been blown out of proportion. The captain cautioned him against letting his guard down, emphasizing that their journey was far from over and they had not yet reached the halfway point. As the discussion turned to, one of the mercenaries questioned the barbarian's true strength, remarking that was known only as a figure in the emperor's legend and had yet to prove himself in battle. Someone else mentioned that who was considered the weakest among them depended on the group for safety and proposed that they ought to test how strong he truly was. Within the carriage, a heavy silence settles over and a mercenary walked up to the carriage and requested a conversation with. He pointed out to her that, as mercenaries, their lives were constantly in danger while they fulfilled the mission outlined in their agreement with her. Feels immense thankfulness toward the group for agreeing to take on this perilous task, a mission so daunting that others had abandoned it after merely learning what it involved. She realizes that without their courage, she would never have had the chance to attempt it herself. The mercenary explained that something continued to trouble him. The barbarian had yet to participate in a single battle. They inform her that they want to verify whether the barbarian is actually worthy of the privileges he has been given. The captain insisted that he had attempted to intervene, yet his efforts were ignored by the others, who had been listening to the conversation, stepped in to express that while he was open to testing his strength, this was not the right time for it. He mentions to the group that there were others who arrived earlier than they did. An eerie new voice resonated through the air, relishing the appearance of fragile humans and comparing them to a savory treat. Everyone in the room stared in disbelief as the unexpected danger revealed itself. A massive, fearsome white serpent emerged, declaring that their screams in agony would only make its feast more enjoyable. The sheer force of the serpent's presence sent waves of agony through, and the mercenaries, forcing screams from their lips, advanced confidently and instructed the serpent to halt, firmly stating that the people present were under his protection, and insisted the creature retreat to where it came from. The serpent questioned about his presence, recalling the strict rules of the snowfields that forbade anyone from venturing beyond the tribe's land. Responded that the matter did not concern the serpent, which made the serpent furious and caused it to accuse of being absurd. The serpent revealed itself, questioning how a mere barbarian could presume to command a creature destined for eternal life. His voice dripping with sarcasm declared that the creature required some discipline. Without hesitation, he hurled himself at it, unleashing a powerful and aggressive assault. An enormous burst of energy erupted from their collision. A forceful shockwave erupted with immense energy, let out a piercing scream as the force of the explosion struck her with overwhelming power. Stood above the vanquished serpent, remarking that creatures like this one only paid attention after being thoroughly subdued. Gazed at the unfolding scene with wide-eyed wonder, as offered her a comforting promise to handle the situation swiftly. Launched a powerful blow, pouring all remaining strength into one last, overwhelming assault. In an instant, a dazzling burst of light erased the serpent from existence. Following the recent events, the mercenaries who once questioned strength pleaded for his pardon, reassured them, expressing his understanding by acknowledging that it was difficult to place faith in someone unfamiliar. Mentioned too that he wanted to ask something. He observes that her attire and manner of speech suggest she is more than an ordinary envoy for her family, and he wonders aloud about her reasons for taking on such a perilous mission herself. After a brief moment of uncertainty, admits that she is the eldest daughter of, who is known as Lord's concubine or secondary wife. She reveals that her mother was brought into the family through a political arrangement, only to be exploited and cast aside, left powerless and unhappy. Admits that although she and her mother are called family, they are actually treated as if they are merely servants. As soon as she shares this truth, she feels a pang of regret for having spoken so openly. She acknowledges that she chose to take part in this risky expedition of her own free will. The statement continued with the suggestion that it was necessary for someone to lead by example. Expressed his understanding, noting that she possessed intelligence, a strong desire for more, and an intense drive to succeed. Without warning, the path out of the snowfield came into view ahead of them. The mercenaries stare in shock at the unexpected sight that unfolds before their eyes. They notice the fresh green grass, a clear sign that their long trek through the snow was finally coming to an end. Expressed her gratitude to, who assured her that traveling back through the empire would be simple now that they had sold the weapons. Wanted to know what he truly meant when he called her intelligent and determined. Affirmed that his statement was intended to be taken literally. He started outlining his reasoning, pointing out that her formerly esteemed family was now facing serious difficulties because they had run out of money. He mentioned that even though she was born to a concubine, if she stepped up herself and found a way to rescue them, she might be able to save her family from ruin. He wonders aloud who the people would choose to believe and support in that situation. He then realizes that her ultimate intention is to take control of the family's authority for herself. He wonders aloud whether he might be wrong, but assures him that his response is exactly correct. Remarks that it is often the case for the offspring of a concubine to face perilous trials in order to claim their family's inheritance. Observed the barbarian and realized he was clever, unlike the shallow scholars she had encountered before. She began to wonder how it would feel to possess the strength he used to overcome the white serpent so effortlessly. Accordingly, she let know he was welcome to join her if he ever decided to leave the snowfield. politely refused her invitation, mentioning that he needed to take care of a few remaining tasks first. Decided to hand him a piece of her jewelry. She instructed him that should he ever gain his freedom and seek out the Akasha family, he must present them with this fragment. Receives the gift with a cheerful expression, clearly pleased by the gesture. Expressed her gratitude to him as they parted ways, quietly hoping that their paths would cross again in the future. Stands quietly, his eyes following the carriage as it rolls into the distance. 5 years passed, and across a vast snowy landscape, a notification emerged announcing that had finished Quest 1784, having fulfilled every required condition. A new message materialized before him, informing him that he was allowed to exit the snowy field, so he started walking toward and through a glowing, translucent barrier. Believes he is finally taking his first step into the magical realm he has always dreamed of. He savors the fresh aromas of grass, animals, and the flowing river, fragrances completely unfamiliar to him back in the snowy fields. He showed his delight at the unfamiliar scents, feeling a deep sense of contentment. He raised his voice toward the far-off expanse of snow, making a promise to himself that he would never set foot there again. He thinks back to how he has at last arrived in the fantastical and mysterious world he once believed was out of his reach, and realizes that despite beginning his journey in the worst possible way, he found a way to endure. He declares that he will embrace this world, eager to experience its dragons, elves, magic, and swords to the fullest. He credits his fierce longing to escape to a dreamlike realm as the reason he survived those unbearable days. Suddenly, he notices a group of creatures assembling close to him. Believing the assembly before him to be a village, he becomes thrilled at the prospect of encountering a developed community at last. He recalls the uncivilized people he once lived among, noting their lack of understanding about the value of proper shelter, and a deep longing stirs within him for the comfort and structure of a thoughtfully built human community. He tries to figure out the best way to greet everyone with good manners. He heard a voice echoing through the air, proclaiming to the dear elf villagers that this land would now serve as their new home. He observes as a lively group of elves busily unpack their possessions, their faces alight with joy as they settle into their new home. A nervous young elf glanced at the elder, seeking reassurance about their safety, and the elder calmly confirmed that there was nothing to fear. Despite the region's isolation and the fact that humans could hardly reach it, the young man's unease lingered. He voiced his worries about how close the snowfield was, and the elder recognized that his anxiety stemmed from the possibility of monsters showing up. The elder comforts him by explaining that nothing has emerged from the snowfield in thousands of years, and mentions that they have also established a barrier to keep everyone safe. He reveals that they have used old elven spells to create a powerful barrier, making the area appear to be just a normal forest. Because of this enchantment, no one from outside can find them as long as the magic holds strong. He mentions that should any monsters appear, they would still have the protection of Her Majesty the Queen. Not even the fearsome creatures that roam the snowy plains dared to approach him. As moves forward, a sudden sensation of something ripping catches his attention, making him question if the area hides anything unusual, all while he remains oblivious to the fact that he has just broken through a hidden barrier. As made his way through the dense forest, he silently questioned how much longer his journey would take. Without warning, the atmosphere shifted. He encounters a young elf girl who appears to be lost. Seeing an actual elf before him, one of the mythical beings he had dreamed about, fills him with immense happiness, and he realizes that all his struggles to stay alive have been meaningful. The young girl trembled with fear as tears streamed down her cheeks. She soon became aware that she had strayed much farther than intended and could no longer find her way back. Walked up to her and greeted her with a friendly hello. The girl's eyes widened in fear as soon as she saw him, and before she could react any further, she lost consciousness and collapsed. Manages to catch her in time. He stands uncertain, unsure how to proceed after she lost consciousness before their conversation could begin, but ultimately resolves to return her to her home village. He recalls stories of elves as gentle and kind-hearted beings, and he believes that if he brings the child back, they will receive him warmly and show him their renowned generosity. He eagerly anticipated the upcoming experience. As he entered the village with the child in his arms, a woman, likely the child's mother, cried out in fear for her daughter, her shock evident at the sight of a human appearing in their midst. The elves respond with hostility, demanding to know the stranger's identity and the method he used to breach their defenses. Quickly understands that the situation is unfolding differently than he had anticipated. The mother kept raising her voice, her screams echoing through the room. The elf elder stared in disbelief, unable to comprehend how a human had managed to cross into their safeguarded territory despite the barrier in place. An elf informed the elder about a fissure appearing in the barrier, causing the elder to react with alarm as he urgently inquired about the queen's location. The elf then explained that Her Majesty had departed briefly to scout the area, attempted to make it clear that he meant no harm, yet one of the warriors warned him that if he refused to bring the child back, they would pursue him relentlessly, no matter how far he ran. The elder announced that their hiding place was no longer secret, realizing that the humans, having broken through the barrier, were likely ready for whatever they might face. He questions in his mind just how much time the humans have spent following their trail, understands that the others believe he is responsible for a kidnapping, so he resolves to explain himself and correct their mistaken assumptions before doing anything else. He gently sets the now-awake child down onto the ground. He instructs her to return to her own community. The child's eyes widened in fear as they caught sight of his intimidating figure, and without hesitation the child turned and fled. The child's wails and shrieks are so fierce that starts to question whether his own appearance could truly be that frightening. He felt a jolt of surprise, having believed that he looked presentable while standing out in the snowy landscape. He made another attempt to communicate with them, clarifying that he had brought the child back and meant no harm. The elder suddenly announced that the hostage was now free and commanded the group to launch an attack. In response, the elves raised their bows, directing their arrows at him. Arrows flew through the air as questioned whether anyone paid attention to his words. Pondered the circumstances he found himself in. He remembered that stories often described elves as gentle, harmonious beings who cherished the natural world. However, the elves he had actually encountered were fierce and aggressive. Realizing this, understood that because elves truly lived among the wilds, their lives might be harsher and more unforgiving than he had ever expected. He comes to realize that nature operates on the principle of survival of the fittest, making it anything but tranquil, and through this perspective, the elves' harshness becomes more comprehensible. Arrows poured from the sky, striking his body but causing no harm. Despite the attack, he remained composed, fully acknowledging that this was his reality. The elves stared in disbelief as the elder tried to figure out what sort of enchanted device possessed. Believing that its power must have boundaries, the elder instructed the archers to keep launching their attacks. Chooses to soothe the crowd by releasing a powerful surge of violet energy. A massive blast sends out an intense wave of force, rippling through the surroundings. The force launched the elves high into the sky. The elder remains motionless, confusion clouding his mind as he tries to make sense of the recent events. Stood within the blast-formed crater and insisted once more that he did not mean them any harm. He realizes internally that he may have overestimated his abilities. At that instant, a second arrow, blazing with a flame reminiscent of a phoenix, struck out toward. The strike unleashes an intense burst of flames, resulting in a massive explosion. The Elf Queen initiated the assault and demanded an explanation for the situation. The elder lets her know that someone from the human world has launched an attack against their group. The queen realized her worst fears had come true and determined that this place could no longer offer safety. Attempts to reach out to her, wishing she would hear what he has to say. The elder stared in disbelief, amazed that remained upright even after receiving a powerful blow from Her Majesty. The queen wonders aloud whether is yet another formidable foe sent to threaten her people. She announced her disdain for humans, calling them vile beings, and revealed her identity as the Queen of the Leaf Tribe. She leveled her radiant arrow toward him, silently promising that he would face harsh consequences for his audacity in desiring what was not his. His frustration grew as he questioned why communication felt impossible, despite sharing a common language. He couldn't tell if she was purposefully avoiding him, or if the tension between humans and elves made understanding each other this difficult. He realized that he had no choice but to use force, recalling the harsh lesson the snowfield had taught him. In his mind, if words failed to persuade them, then only a beating would make them obey. The queen unleashes a mystical arrow from her bow. A gigantic, ghostly dragon's head forms from the arrow, surging straight for himself to strike back, channeling power into his clenched hand. With a powerful swing of his fist, he struck the ghostly dragon, causing an enormous blast to erupt. The queen stares in disbelief, unable to hide her astonishment at the outcome. Glanced down at his clenched fist, a wave of regret washing over him as he realized he may have pushed his abilities too far. At that moment, the queen was sent flying backward from the force of his actions. The queen collapsed onto the ground, overcome by her loss. Wondered if he ought to have been more careful with his abilities. The queen quickly understands from their short encounter that her rival possesses remarkable strength, likely reaching a transcendent rank, and she silently questions the reason such a formidable individual has appeared in this place. The Elf Queen, sensing the extent of his power, instructed her subjects to evacuate the area at once to protect them from danger. At her signal, the elves retreated from the area. The queen recognized strength, yet she confidently informed him that his ambitions would always remain out of reach. Reflects inwardly, realizing that everything has spiraled out of control, despite his only intention being to have a conversation with them. The queen raised her voice in a rhythmic incantation, calling forth a horned entity enveloped in the brightest, most untainted fire. A mighty spirit took shape before her, its form blazing into existence as a bull wreathed in fire. He went by the name Vigo, felt a surge of excitement as she recalled how frightening and bizarre the creatures in the snowfield had been, yet she realized that this was now an authentic summoning. He recalls that while a few of the snowfield's creatures looked as if they belonged the majority appeared grotesque and monstrous. Standing before him was a beast unlike any he had ever seen, a massive bull with horns ablaze, radiating an intense and otherworldly heat. He feels a rush of excitement as he realizes he is witnessing a genuine spirit and experiencing real magic. The queen commanded Vigo to destroy their foes, but the powerful fire spirit grumbled quietly, finding summoning contracts bothersome and troublesome. The queen commands him to hold his tongue. She reflects inwardly, recalling how powerful spirits tend to be ancient and prideful. She realizes she would have failed to form this contract alone and only managed it with assistance from a different tribe. Summoning him like this was something she never anticipated. She repeated her demand, insisting that Vigo honor the terms of their agreement. Vigo wonders aloud whether the contract demands the death of the human standing before him, but his resolve falters as he suddenly detects an unusual quality in. He gazes at, unsettled by the powerful presence surrounding him, and questions whether it could really be a human being. Remained mesmerized by the breathtaking fantasy unfolding around him, but his awe quickly faded when he came to the disheartening realization that he was the intended victim. Vigo couldn't hide his scorn at the boldness of a mere human daring to desire a people shaped by nature itself, and in that moment, he resolved to reduce the offender to nothing but ash. Vigo rushed forward in his direction, braces himself, positioning his body to defend against the incoming strike. Without warning, the queen flinched as a powerful shockwave struck her. As she slowly opened her eyes, surprise washed over her when she saw that had effortlessly intercepted Vigo's strike and was now holding his horn in a firm grip. Smiled to himself, realizing he felt more comfortable when faced with a monstrous shape, since he never hesitated to destroy something so clearly inhuman. The queen gazes upon the unfolding events, her face stricken with terror, released a powerful strike that triggered a huge blast, leveling the entire forest. The sound bounced off the nearby rocks and carried up into the sky, spreading its echo through the air. The explosion's powerful blast forced a scream from the queen. The lush green forest vanished, replaced by an enormous crater, while the queen stared at the scene, unable to believe what had just occurred. Made her way across the crater, moving steadily toward the fallen queen at its center. The vanquished elf queen pleaded desperately, hoping he would show mercy and allow her people to live. Spoke in a gentle tone, letting her know with confidence that he did not mean them any harm. The queen stared in disbelief, words escaping her as shock rendered her silent. After many discussions, the elves come to realize that he is not truly their foe. The queen expressed her regret too, conceding that they had unfairly rushed to form an opinion about him. She is overcome with guilt as she remembers how harshly they treated the person who brought back the missing child, having wrongly assumed that individual was a threat. Expressed sympathy for their situation, acknowledging how humans had forced them out of their homes. Still, he felt a deep sadness that his words had gone unheard. The queen asked once more if he had been among the humans pursuing them, and assured her that he had never seen an elf before, since no elves lived in the white snowfield where he came from. The queen's eyes widened in surprise when she heard the snowfield mentioned, instantly realizing that the man before her was the infamous Ashen Barbarian, then acknowledged that this was indeed the title outsiders used to refer to him. The queen could hardly believe what she was hearing, since she had always assumed that no human could possibly endure such a place. She nervously wonders if his arrival from that place suggests that others might also be able to come. Admitted his uncertainty, explaining that while he couldn't say for sure, he doubted anyone else would escape using the same method he had. He reveals that the snowfield is governed by unbreakable rules, strict enough that even mighty dragons must obey them. For reasons unknown, he alone managed to escape by completing something referred to as a quest, and he suspects that his situation is an unusual rarity. The queen's tension faded as relief washed over her. Afterward, inquired about how her summoned creature was faring. He pointed out to her without hesitation that the bull had been sliced into 2 parts. The queen calmly explains that he has nothing to fear, since spirits are natural entities and this one has merely gone back to its own realm. Regretting her earlier impoliteness, she inquires if there is something he wants, assuring him that she will fulfill his request. Pondered the idea of a spirit and wondered whether creatures who were not elves had the ability to form a contract with such beings. At first, the queen dismisses the idea as impossible. However, after some thought, she changes her mind and explains that a few humans who live in harmony with nature are able to form bonds with spirits. After considering his request, she explains that anyone seeking to form a contract with a spirit must travel to. She revealed that this land was holy ground for all elves, home to their deity, and suggested he could find a way to make his wish come true there. Wonders whether someone human like himself would be allowed to enter that place. The queen considers his request and suggests that her endorsement could make it happen, She then proposes to share the location with him, but only if he promises to keep it confidential. The queen pondered silently, aware that anyone fascinated by elves regarded as the ultimate place to visit. She believes that elves keep the whereabouts of this place secret from other races, fearing that humans could threaten its sanctity. In spite of her doubts, she chooses to place her faith in him, extending a radiant crystal in his direction. Takes it with appreciation. The queen reveals that despite his efforts to reach the area, he will inevitably face a trial set by their god. She assures him of her belief in his abilities and hopes he travels safely, while responds with gratitude. The queen presented herself with regal grace, announcing her name as ruler of the Leaf tribe, before inquiring about his identity. He revealed his name to be and identified himself as a barbarian. Sometime later, raced swiftly among the trees, weaving through the dense forest. At the edge of Barkan territory within the kingdom of, a deafening roar and a surge of overwhelming energy sent the guards into a frenzy of fear. The captain of the guards commanded that the bell be sounded and called for every guard to gather without delay. Made an unexpected entrance. He landed with such force that the ground shook, sending clouds of dust and fragments of debris swirling into the air. The guard captain's eyes widened in surprise when he suddenly appeared, welcomed the group, and inquired whether they were the assigned protectors. The guards appeared confused and wary. They questioned whether he might be causing the disturbance, and consider the possibility that he could be an adversary. A guard caught sight of his gray hair and the scar that marked his chest. He suddenly comes to the startling conclusion that he could be the fabled Ashen Barbarian. As drew nearer, the guards lifted their weapons in a defensive stance, signaling him to halt and making it clear that any further movement on his part would provoke them to strike. Maintaining a composed demeanor, assures the others that he means no harm and wishes for them to relax. A guard, his voice trembling with uncertainty, inquires about the newcomer's intentions toward their group. Extended his finger, indicating a particular direction. The guard looks at him with confusion, trying to understand his intentions as he gestures toward the city gate. Shared his longing to travel to their homeland. The guard stared in disbelief, clearly taken aback by his words. The setting changes to a chamber where the captain of the guards questions about whether he is simply traveling through. In response, explains that he hopes to remain there for some time, though he is uncertain about the length of his stay. The captain inquired about his identity, and he responded by introducing himself as. When the captain requested evidence of identity or someone to vouch for him, admitted that he possessed neither. Thought back to the moment handed him the crest, her instructions echoing in his mind. He was to present it to the Akasha family if he ever managed to leave the snowfield. He holds out the crest, inquiring whether it will be enough. Revealed that the symbol belonged to the Akasha family and mentioned he had obtained it from one of their descendants. Upon hearing the name, the captain immediately associated it with the well-known merchant family from his kingdom. The captain remembers stories of a merchant family arriving in the snowfield several years prior, and observes that the Akasha family's power has increased swiftly since a new leader took charge. Repeated his question, wanting to know if the crest would be sufficient to prove who he was. The captain examined the crest, admitting that it appeared genuine, but explained that verifying its authenticity was difficult because it did not originate from their own kingdom. The captain concludes that while the crest does not offer absolute proof, it still holds significant value. He grants permission to come inside, stipulating a single requirement. He explains that the requirement exists to prove he poses no threat. The captain informs that 3 more individuals with unknown backgrounds are also attempting to cross into the area. In order to gain entry, is required to join forces with these people and successfully complete a dungeon close by, demonstrating they are not dangerous. Is relieved, thinking this requirement is less difficult than he had anticipated. Accepted the captain's terms, only for the captain to introduce an additional requirement. The second requirement stated that once the dungeon had been cleared, was obligated to deliver a full report of the operation's details to them. Realized that the captain had come up with a smart strategy. By assigning those whose identities were uncertain to keep an eye on each other, the captain could use their reports to reveal anyone acting suspiciously. The captain, clearly unsettled, quickly shifted the conversation and inquired whether was truly a barbarian. Acknowledges his identity as a barbarian. The captain, clearly taken aback, confessed that encountering a barbarian like him was unprecedented. He had always believed barbarians to be nothing more than an uneducated people. With that, the captain concluded their exchange and instructed him to begin the journey. The setting changes to a waiting area where, known as a holy knight, grumbles about being assigned to explore a dungeon alongside a rogue notorious for exploiting others. A known thief responded with biting sarcasm, implying that the old man was taking out his frustration on him after being swindled by a different thief who had stolen all his money. His temper flared as he demanded to know how someone accused of theft could have the audacity to insult a revered holy knight like himself. Ridiculed him, pointing out the battered state of his armor and doubting whether true holy knights would dress so poorly. Went on to say that a genuine knight would never have ended up in such a place. He comes to the realization that is merely a roaming fighter, much like himself, and acknowledges that they are both insignificant beings of the same nature. His temper flared and he clenched his fists, making it clear he was ready to start a fight. Let out a scornful laugh, questioning whether the other man's worn-out armor could possibly keep him safe. The third member of the team, a priestess, steps forward and urges everyone to cease their actions. The priestess, known as of, silently worries about the prospect of exploring a dungeon alongside this particular group. The guard captain walked in and informed the group that at least 4 people were required to enter the dungeon, adding that another person would be joining their team. The priestess silently wishes that the final newcomer will be an ordinary individual, while the captain informs her that she can form her own opinion, since the person in question has just shown up. Walked into the room and the team members already inside stared at him in surprise, clearly not expecting to see him there. Greets the group with a bright smile, wondering aloud if they might be the teammates he has been waiting for. The team stared in disbelief, their eyes wide with astonishment, couldn't help but notice how enormous the newcomer was compared to everyone else. The priestess silently questioned whether this figure was even human. Meanwhile, could sense an overwhelming force radiating from him, pressing down on everyone nearby. Greeted everyone with a friendly hello. The guard captain informed the group that they could take a moment to introduce themselves as he left the room briefly. Started the conversation by presenting himself as, identifying his role as a barbarian. The man turned to the thief and inquired about his name. After a brief pause, the thief nervously revealed that he was called. He approaches the holy knight, who announces his name as, then inquires whether possesses the ability to wield holy power. Feeling uneasy, tries to clarify that he is a unique kind of holy knight who is unable to use it. The woman revealed her identity as a priestess devoted to the deity known for lies and deception. Wonders aloud about the reason her identity remains unverified, especially considering her status as a priestess. She clarifies that the deity she follows does not receive much respect. Once everyone had finished introducing themselves, the guard captain informed the group that, if they felt prepared, it was time to begin their journey. The team moves forward, the atmosphere heavy with quiet and unease. The guard who accompanied them stepped forward and informed everyone of their presence. The guard gestures toward the doorway leading into the dungeon. He describes the dungeon as having 3 levels, filled with undead creatures lurking within its depths. The goal was to complete the task and discover a crest hidden within. Before they started, requested that go over the plan. He begins to offer an explanation, but as soon as he refers to with a formal title, interrupts with a friendly grin, encouraging him to speak more casually since they are equals and allies. Casson took charge of the group, designating and the warrior to lead at the front. He explained that their job would be to hold the line, while he would stay alert for any hidden traps along their path. He mentions that the priestess is going to aid the fight from behind, using her sacred abilities. Gave his approval to the plan, leaving bewildered by the decision. Excitedly declares to the group that it is time for them to begin their journey. The group steps cautiously into the dark dungeon, following his confident lead at the front. Within the room, observes the complete darkness and notices that there are no familiar traps or hidden keys, which strikes him as oddly normal and arouses his suspicion. Without warning, brought the group to a halt, insisting that a monster was nearby, even though couldn't spot anything unusual. He gestures toward the broken bones strewn across the earth, warning that these remains belong to skeletons that will come to life and attack if anyone dares to approach. Came to understand that the guard captain was already aware of the situation, and he recognized that the dungeon served not merely as a test, but as a method for eliminating outsiders who caused problems. Reflects on the meaning behind the word skeletons. Described how skeletons possessed incredible strength, continuing to move without pause even when wounded or missing limbs. He explained that the creature's strong defenses came from their bony structures, which made the dungeon more challenging than anyone had anticipated. Stepped forward to guide the group, instructing the priestess to summon her sacred energy, urging to position his shield defensively, and signaling to brace himself for what was to come. He clarifies that his responsibility is to take advantage of openings during the battle and suggests that the group focus their attacks on the skeleton's vulnerable neck, warning them that they will need to hit it several times because it is so resilient. Observing this, considers to be an effective leader. The moment they moved forward, a bony figure began to emerge, lifting itself from beneath the earth. The team themselves for the upcoming fight, however, just lifts his hand in response. With one swift motion, he crushes the skeleton's skull, breaking it apart effortlessly. He gently brushed the enchanted powder from his palm, sending it swirling into the air. Everyone else on the team stood frozen in shock, unable to process what had just happened. Acknowledged earlier observation, noting that the skeletons remained motionless once their skulls were destroyed. Let out an uneasy laugh, quickly clarifying that his words were misunderstood. He pointed out that breaking all the bones in a skeleton with just one hit was an almost impossible feat, even for expert sword fighters. Only those who could wield aura might manage such a thing, so his power was truly extraordinary. reflected on the situation, reasoning that defeating a skeleton empowered by dungeon magic required persistent strikes to its neck. He likened the process to chopping down a tree, believing that only by breaking could the creature be overcome. He realizes that feat crushing the skeleton's skull into dust with just one strike shouldn't be possible by normal standards. Deep down, he always sensed strength when they first met, but witnessing this display makes him acknowledge that he had underestimated just how powerful truly is. The team members stared at with astonished expressions, while questioned inwardly whether could truly be human. Suggests that they continue progressing without hesitation. The remainder of the group quickly shows their agreement, their unease evident in their hesitant reactions. Observes their abrupt rush and is quietly entertained by it. While they moved along their path, amused himself by toying with the skull of a skeleton. Without warning, a horde of skeletons appeared and blocked their path. Everyone gets ready, bracing themselves for the difficult fight ahead. However, interrupts their actions, requesting their assistance with something. He requested to take on the skeletons alone, explaining that there were a few things he needed to investigate. Impressed by his strength, the rest of the team quickly agreed to his plan. Expressed gratitude toward them, found himself questioning what his own plans were. Walked up to the skeletons, her curiosity piqued by the way their bones were arranged. A skeleton suddenly lunges at him, initiating an attack. He appeared to be carefully studying how it moved and examining its overall shape. He turns to one of the figures, treating it like a sparring companion, and wonders aloud what its next move will be. The skeleton swung its sword at him, launching a fierce attack. Swiftly moves out of the way, avoiding the attack with ease. He reached out and took hold of the skeleton's hand, smiling as he wondered what the skeleton planned to do in response. With nothing but his own strength, he forcefully snapped the skeleton's arm. The skeleton reacted with shock to the unexpected event, feeling both startled and offended by what had occurred. He quickly grabs the dropped sword with his free hand, displaying impressive agility. Made light of the moment, joking about how impressive it was that the skeleton could change which hand it used. As the skeleton lunged forward, swiftly seized its hand once more. He proceeds to snap the blade in half before taking apart the skeleton's arm. The skeleton launched another assault, but swiftly avoided its blows without difficulty. He intercepted the skeleton's attack with his hands, a grin spreading across his face as he marveled at how the skeleton demonstrated intelligence. A member of the team let out a groan, clearly unable to believe what had just happened. Stands frozen in shock, struggling to comprehend just how powerful truly is. Silently regarded the person before him, convinced he was witnessing the behavior of a genuine barbarian. Lifted the skeleton's skull from its body and forcefully stomped on it, shattering it beneath his boot. He offered an apology to the team for making them wait, but the team, thoroughly impressed by his abilities, assured him that he was free to act as he pleased. Proposed that they move forward, and although uncertainty flickered in their eyes, the rest of the team reluctantly went along with the plan. They arrived at the doorway that led to the second floor. Clearly worn out, proposes that the group pause for a brief rest. Gave a nod of agreement, easing the tension that had been feeling. During their break, mentioned that he had a few questions about the dungeon. The priestess gestures to him, indicating that he may pose his question. Starts his speech with a hesitant confession about his limited understanding. Hayes offered encouragement, remarking that having a strong wish to learn was an admirable trait, and then inquired about the specific things that sparked his curiosity. Observed that the dungeon lay just a short distance from the edge of the territory. He wonders aloud whether the existence of dungeons and monsters so close to populated areas poses any issues. Clarifies that monsters from the dungeon rarely emerge, and while there are rare cases when they do, those situations are handled ahead of time. Explained that dungeons often formed on their own, occasionally taking the shape of caves or rising up as towers. He observes that the majority seem to be located close to major cities. Explained that once a dungeon emerged, the territory would evaluate how dangerous it was before sending people like them to handle the situation. Wondered whether the appearances happened inside the territory, but the priestess explained that they actually manifested some distance away from where people lived. Wonders aloud whether completing the dungeon will earn them any kind of reward. Nodded, clarifying that typically a powerful boss awaited challengers on the top floor, and overcoming it would yield a range of valuable rewards. He also mentioned that the prizes found in a dungeon of this difficulty would be especially impressive. Grinned to himself, feeling as though the situation resembled a playful challenge. When Hayes questioned him, simply insisted that he had only been speaking his thoughts aloud. He wonders aloud for the final time, trying to find out who is responsible for creating these dungeons. The question surprises the team, leaving them momentarily speechless. Hayes then explains that these things occur on their own without anyone creating them. Thought it was odd that these things always showed up close to where people lived, almost as if someone had designed them to attract explorers. He went on with his examination, noting that these beings often showed up close to human settlements and enticed people by offering tempting rewards. He decides that the event appears too manufactured to have occurred naturally. Sai's widened with shock as she grasped the undeniable truth behind what he had just said. She realizes that the idea had always appeared so obvious to her that she had never questioned it until now. Reflects inwardly, realizing he had always accepted the idea without doubt simply because everyone else believed it to be true, and he is surprised that this outsider would dare to challenge something so widely accepted. He finishes reflecting, asserting that barbarians remain an uneducated and brutal people, known for their harshness and lack of compassion, and insists that this reality has persisted unchanged. Silently pondered whether this barbarian could truly be considered ordinary. Gathered the team's focus and inquired whether everyone felt sufficiently rested. The team members exchanged anxious glances and assured one another that they had done so. With a bright smile, encourages the group to continue their journey. The group presses onward, making their way further into the heart of the dungeon. As they came across an unusual object, grew curious and inquired about its nature. Pointed out that the object was a treasure chest, a prized reward from the labyrinth, and indicated to that he could claim it if he managed to unlock it. He explains that unlocking a chest of this caliber demands a talented thief who has demonstrated expertise in picking locks. Expressed regret that someone so talented at stealing would have no real reason to venture into a dungeon, hinting that they should give up on the attempt. However, dismissed concerns and instructed him to proceed with opening it. Stared in disbelief, his eyes wide with surprise. Meanwhile, gestured toward the ornate box, reminding that it was, in fact, a treasure chest, something a thief-like would normally seek. Eagerly shares his belief that uncovering treasure chests captures the true spirit of being a thief, and he looks forward to witnessing those skills in action firsthand. Silently acknowledged that had a point, yet an issue lingered in his mind. If accomplishing that task were within his abilities, he realized he would not have found himself in this situation at all. The depth of his inner turmoil made it clear that he doubted his own abilities. Known only as a petty thief, he had never earned the acknowledgement of the Thieves' Guild and in truth had no real talent for picking locks. He keeps the truth from, worried that the eager look in his eyes might fade into disappointment. Noticed his uncertainty and stepped in, questioning whether he was even capable of handling such a simple task and criticizing him for being worthless. Fear took hold of, compelling him to give it a try. While he himself with his task, a chill ran down his spine under the intense scrutiny of his eyes boring into his back, and a wave of fear washed over him as he imagined the consequences of failure. He frantically searches his memory, recalling the techniques he once observed another thief use during his time assisting as a porter. He risks everything and channels every ounce of his determination. Gazes at him, confusion flickering across her face as she tries to understand the determination behind his actions. Managed to unlock the chest, his eyes brimming with tears as he revealed its opening to everyone. Looked on with true admiration, clearly impressed as she admitted her surprise at witnessing such a talented thief personally unlock a treasure chest. Offered him praise, acknowledging the outstanding quality of his efforts. Found himself plunged into an existential crisis. Although he had always taken pride in his efforts to survive, doubts now crept in for the first time, making him question whether he had truly given his all. In that moment, the sense of pride he once held slipped away. Wondered how much the treasure was worth, so guessed that it could support a typical family for roughly a month without worries. Requested that take charge of arranging the rewards. Starts organizing the treasure. Without warning, a terrified scream bursts from him. The group moves forward with care, pressing on along their path. The group came across a second skeleton sprawled across the earth, and instructed everyone to pause. Sighs swept over the scene, quickly spotting 4 skulls scattered about. From this, he determined there must be 4 skeletons present. Without hesitation, he declared his intent to handle 3 of the skeletal foes himself. The unexpected turn of events leaves the team in a state of shock. With a cheerful grin, announces that he will let them handle the final skeleton. Understands that they are facing an actual battle and a crucial trial, and the rest of the group recognizes the gravity of the moment, silently coming to the same conclusion. From a scattered heap of bones, skeletons started to piece themselves together, filling with fear at the unsettling scene. 4 skeletons emerged, standing tall and ready to confront the group. Commanded the group to attack, prompting the priestess to start reciting her sacred prayer. A horde of skeletons charged in their direction. One individual lunges in its direction, gathered the remaining skeletons, and warned them to keep quiet so they wouldn't ruin the unusual moment. A skeleton lunged at, but he quickly raised his shield to deflect the assault. Quickly moved out of the way, narrowly avoiding the incoming strike. Quickly joined the fight, launching an attack against the very same skeleton. He summoned the Shadow of Illusion spell. The attack struck the skeleton. The force causes it to lose its balance. Observed the scene with amusement, noting how uncommon it was to witness such a perfect demonstration of coordinated group fighting. He swiftly disposed of the 3 skeletons he was holding, then remarked to himself that he could finally relax and watch the unfolding events. Persisted in his attempts to strike the skeleton. The team soon understood that was putting them through a test. Only one skeleton remained with the team, looking bewildered as it noticed its fellow skeletons had vanished. believes that any sign of vulnerability will lead to their demise. Once the fight concluded, the group looked utterly drained of energy, believed that everyone who had gathered on the snowfield possessed great strength. The group moved forward through the third floor where more skeleton monsters awaited them. Under guidance, they faced little trouble and steadily made their way to where they needed to go. They reached the innermost chamber of the dungeon. Upon entering, the group discovers the dungeon boss, a skeletal knight seated regally on a throne, stares in disbelief, his mind racing with questions about the presence of such a creature in this place. Wondered aloud whether this creature was unlike the ones they had faced before, and responded by assuring her that it possessed incredible strength. She clarifies that the skeletal knight is a foe reserved for those who have reached the rank of knight, making it far too powerful for them to confront. She then wonders aloud about the consequences they would face if they chose to retreat. Went on to clarify that in such situations the territory would launch an investigation. If the findings showed that the decision made sense, the issue would typically be settled smoothly. Explained that the team made a sensible choice when they decided to pull out. Seated atop its throne, the skeletal knight exudes a dark and foreboding aura. Walked closer, fascinated by the way the skeleton was able to hold itself together without any support. The skeletal knight stood up from its throne, unsheathing its sword with a chilling determination. He had cautioned others about the threat it posed. She raises her shield in an attempt to defend herself against the attack at launch. However, the object breaks apart, prompting to step in and defend against the attack by raising his shield. The powerful shockwave sent the team members stumbling backward, yet stood firm, completely untouched by its force. Cannot believe how powerful that single attack was. The skeletal knight charged in its direction with swift determination. Observed its advance with a composed demeanor. With one powerful strike, he destroys it beyond recognition. In that moment, the skeletal knight crumbled to pieces, leaving the entire team frozen in shock. Brushed his hands clean and calmly inquired whether there was anything else. A fresh treasure chest materialized before them, prompting Daget's attention. He wondered aloud about opening it, but gripped by panic, insisted that it couldn't be done since a high-level lock secured it, one far too advanced for his abilities. Remarked that it was unfortunate, while nodded in agreement, suggesting they leave the chest behind. Chooses not to respond, and gets ready to break open the chest with sheer strength. Was taken aback, delivered a forceful strike that broke the chest apart, causing it to spring open. Suggested that taking this approach could lead to a greater reward, then instructed to gather the treasure. Wondered inwardly why had instructed him to open the first chest when it seemed possible to simply break one open, since he had never encountered anyone destroying a treasure chest by force before. The group left the dungeon just as it started to vanish from sight. Clarified that a fully cleared dungeon vanishes, and after considering the situation, he determined that no secret room had been present this time. Became intrigued by the idea of hidden rooms. Explained to him that such rooms did exist, though they were uncommon, and found this revelation fascinating. The guard captain stands at the entrance, visibly startled by how quickly they have come back. The captain inquired about the dungeon, prompting to respond that the experience had been extremely rewarding. The captain explained that he intended to follow the exit procedures, and requested that each person join him individually. The priestess is the first to be questioned, and she responds by assuring everyone that there are no significant issues to report. The guard captain wondered aloud whether she believed the barbarian would be allowed to remain within the territory. The guard captain hesitated, unsure if allowing the barbarian to remain was the right choice. He noticed that his uncertainty only became obvious when others discussed him. In the end, the captain realized that conquering the dungeon was simply a tool. The true objective was to reveal those who posed a threat. As questioned, he observed that appeared unlikely to be someone who would stir up any problems. Observed that the barbarian possessed incredible strength, yet noted that he had not injured anyone. From this, determined that this barbarian was unlike the others he had encountered. When faces inquiries, he takes a moment to highlight the strengths of his companions. He acknowledges impressive skill in disabling traps and attempting to unlock the treasure chest. He also notes bravery and steadfastness in defending the group on the front lines. Credits his own prayers as a source of support that aided everyone during the fight. The captain notices how rare it is for people who have just met and been thrown together by circumstance to complement one another. The captain reached a conclusion and allowed them to come inside, yet he cautioned that any misbehavior would result in their immediate removal. Afterward, he hands over the reward for completing the dungeon and instructs the group to share it amongst themselves. Feels impressed by this gesture, quietly observing that it is uncommon, as guards often keep the rewards for their own benefit. With a bright smile, suggests that the reward ought to be shared equally among everyone. The rest of the group appeared puzzled and declined their portions, insisting that they were content without receiving anything. Remained firm in his belief that the dungeon had been conquered through teamwork, so he demanded that the reward be divided equally among them, refusing to listen to any protests. With excitement, he proposes that they mark the occasion by having drinks together at a local tavern. The team reluctantly consents, their faces betraying the fear they try to hide as each member silently longs for the comfort and safety of home. When the team steps into the new territory, the captain's mind drifts to the report he must write later, especially noting how a barbarian managed to defeat a skeletal knight with just one powerful strike. He determines that is far from an ordinary barbarian. Instead, possesses immense strength equal to that of a knight and stands out as an extraordinary and fabled figure. The captain instructed a subordinate to stand watch at the gate as he set off to deliver his report to the Lord. The captain stepped into the throne room, ready to present his report. The ruler of the territory inquired about the situation. The captain lets him know that a barbarian has been spotted within the territory. The Lord questioned whether permission had been given for the man's entry, prompting the captain to respond affirmatively and clarify that he had noticed nothing seriously wrong with him. The Lord inquires about the nature of the issue at hand. The captain points out that the barbarian's immense strength could make him a serious threat. The Lord wonders aloud about the extent of his own strength. The captain informs him that he defeated a skeletal knight with just one strike. The Lord reiterated the details, emphasizing that overcoming a creature of that caliber would demand the power possessed by a knight. He considers barbarians to be unsophisticated and lacking in education, believing they rely solely on physical strength to handle any situation. He determined that possessed abilities of at least first rank, and the captain agreed this was the most probable case, though he also admitted could be even more powerful. The Lord realizes that having such a formidable warrior, a barbarian convinced that strength determines justice, will be troublesome. He instructs his men to bring the warrior before him. He points out that having such a powerful individual moving freely through the area is already a significant threat, and admits he prefers to confront this person directly, even if it means putting himself in harm's way. The captain voiced his worries about the Lord's well-being, but the Lord calmly assured him that he could handle the dangers of the knight himself. An imposing knight clad in heavy armor emerged from behind the throne, leaving the captain stunned. Lord turned to his knight, seeking his thoughts on the matter. The knight, exuding confidence, asserted that despite his impressive strength, he remained nothing more than an uncivilized barbarian. In the knight's view, could never hope to defeat the refined sword techniques he had mastered under the guidance of a legendary. The Lord resolved to address the barbarian personally and instructed his servants to bring the man before him. At the same time, enjoyed a lively celebration with his teammates inside a bustling tavern. His boundless hunger for both food and drink left the rest of the team utterly drained. Noted the delicious taste of the food and appreciated the quiet atmosphere of the place. He encouraged everyone to order whatever they wanted, assuring them that he would cover the cost. He glanced toward, seeking confirmation of his status as a paladin. He then inquires about the type of sacred ability the other possesses, noting that he hadn't witnessed any such power during their time in the dungeon. Feeling uneasy, admits that he is still undergoing training and his holy abilities have yet to emerge. Expressed disappointment about the situation before turning to priestess to inquire whether there was a temple dedicated to in the vicinity. Responds with uncertainty, explaining that her deity is not broadly accepted among others. The narration reveals that is recognized as the god of lies and deception, shunned and cast aside by most people. Wonders aloud about his true strength. Explained his uncertainty about his current rank, mentioning that he had just recently departed from the snowfield. In response, he inquired about how powerful the skeletal knight was. Hayes pointed out that only those who had reached at least the second rank could stand against a skeletal knight. He added that delivering a single, decisive strike to defeat such a foe as had done required the skills of a first-rank warrior. Realized that his abilities placed him at the second rank. Just then, the anxious tavern owner burst in, his voice trembling as he informed everyone that the tavern would soon be closing, clearly frightened by the barbarians gathered inside. Expressed regret for the situation and requested that everyone make their way out. He inquired about their other commitments, prompting each of them to hurriedly insist that their schedules were packed. Conveyed his remorse and said goodbye to the group, wishing that their paths might cross once more in the future. Although none of them said it out loud, everyone silently agreed that they hoped to never cross paths with him again. Later lay in bed at an inn taking time to rest. He felt thankful that the rewards from the dungeon had given him enough money to pay for the inn. He thinks of this place as a paradise when he compares it to the harsh snowfield. He reflected on the distance he had traveled to finally arrive among others, and felt a growing eagerness to continue discovering new places. He made up his mind to seek out an adventure, weighing options such as exploring the elf sanctuary, visiting the Tower of Magic, or journeying to the royal capital. He wakes abruptly when someone pounds forcefully on his door. The guard captain stood at the doorway, offering an apology for disturbing him from his sleep. The captain lets him know that the Lord has requested his presence for a private meeting. Found it intriguing that the ruler of this territory wished to see him. He responds with enthusiasm, happily accepting. While putting on his clothes, the captain felt confused by how quickly he had agreed, questioning whether he had arrived at the correct destination. Moved through the territory, observing it in daylight for the first time after only ever seeing it at night before. He thinks the way everything looks during the day is truly beautiful. He feels a surge of joy, deciding that if dreams like this are his fortune, he would gladly embrace them whenever they come. Meanwhile, the guard by his side stands confused, unable to make sense of the situation. He comes to the conclusion that keeping occupied is the best course of action. The guard captain informed the lord that the barbarian had arrived, prompting the lord to instruct that the visitor be brought before him. Stepped into the grand throne room, Lord Barkin, who ruled over the Barkin lands within the kingdom of, greeted his guest with a warm welcome, extended his hand for a handshake, conveying his satisfaction at finally meeting the true ruler of the land. He reveals his name to be known to others as the Barbarian. The guard stared in disbelief as the Barbarian lowered his head in a gesture of respect. The lord believed that barbarians valued strength above all else, which is why they rarely showed submission. With a hint of sarcasm, he remarked that living long enough would expose a person to all sorts of unexpected sights. The lord observed improved manners and gestured for him to take a seat, acknowledging his progress in etiquette. Studied the architecture of the lord's castle, her thoughts occupied with its intricate design. He observed the knight standing watch over the lord, and found himself thinking that the castle resembled those from medieval times. He stands in awe, witnessing an actual knight before him, exactly like the ones he used to picture in his childhood dreams. The darkness of the night seemed to radiate an unmistakable and intense sense of danger. The knight considers reckless for displaying such bold energy before the lord, and silently promises himself that will not survive this encounter. The lord explains too that his summons has a straightforward purpose. He merely wishes to verify some matters. Nodded in agreement, curious about what the lord wished to verify. When questioned by the lord about where he was from, explained that he hailed from the coldest place imaginable, a land blanketed entirely in white. He reveals his origins from the vast white snowfield, leaving both the lord and his knight stunned by this revelation. The lord comes to the difficult realization that is, in fact, the legendary Barbarian, a truth that is challenging to believe. Explained that the place had been terrifying, and he believed it was up to the lord to decide whether to acknowledge that truth or not. The lord shifted the conversation and inquired about strength instead. Restated the question, pointing out that the real issue was the potential threat posed by his power. He responds by explaining that the question isn't quite right, since he has no way of knowing what standards exist beyond the snowfield. The lord proposes testing the stranger's abilities by arranging a duel between him and one of the knights, offering a generous reward as an incentive. Echoed the word duel, seeking clarification, and the lord assured him that the contest would not be fatal. Grinned, expressing his enthusiasm for the suggestion and growing eager, just thinking about the opportunity to challenge a knight in a duel. He feels a surge of excitement, thrilled not only at the chance to face a knight in battle, but also because this opponent comes from a magical realm, wielding strange abilities and an otherworldly aura. Feels a surge of excitement as he anticipates the upcoming duel, viewing it as an opportunity to observe a true knight's abilities firsthand. On the other hand, Lord believes that, even though behaves courteously, a barbarian never loses his wild spirit, and his love for battle stays the same no matter what. Both fighters stand in the center of a vast arena designed for duels. The lord declared the beginning of the match and shared his wish that the competition would remain peaceful, without anyone getting hurt. The knight, brimming with pride, declares that should feel privileged to watch his skill with a sword. Expresses his sincere hope that the outcome will indeed be positive. Serenity seemed to provoke the night, stirring its darkness with unspoken fury. She silently promises to demonstrate just how much her abilities surpass his. The knight rushed forward, initiating his assault. His sword appeared to split into 3 identical blades. Reacts with astonishment to the unexpected method. She comes to understand that what she sees is, in fact, real. The 3 swords appeared genuine, leaving them to question whether they were witnessing true swordsmanship. The knight watched as narrowly avoided his strike, clearly impressed by her quick reflexes, yet he decided there was no reason to continue the assault. With just a slight movement of his finger, the action unfolded. The knight stared in disbelief as the sword broke apart, confusion flooding his mind as he tried to comprehend what had just happened. He remains unaware until it is too late. Reached out and held his face in his hands. With a powerful motion, he hurled his opponent aside, and the knight fell, overcome by just 1 strike. The lord stands frozen in disbelief, astounded that a top-ranked knight has fallen with just 1 strike, and finds himself awed by the sheer strength possesses. Wonders aloud whether the match has come to an end. The Lord, visibly startled, acknowledges that it is true. The Lord carefully considered what had just happened. He realized that a barbarian had managed to overpower a top-ranked knight with only one strike. The strength displayed was beyond ordinary, seeming almost otherworldly, and the true extent of this barbarian's abilities remained a mystery. He realizes that a barbarian possessing this much strength might threaten the stability of the world's power structure. He realizes the moment has come to notify that individual, who is among the rare few recognized as a. The Lord pondered this impending visit, uncertain whether the renowned warrior would find the situation compelling. Without warning, an elderly man with white hair materialized inside the Lord's chamber. The Lord chuckled, remarking on this consistently unusual preferences, while they responded with a light-hearted comment about the importance of having some amusement in life. Cain, known as the Sword Master, requested that the Lord explain the intriguing situation to him. Lord greeted Cain warmly, conveying his deep appreciation for Cain's arrival despite the brief notice. At the same time, the knight who had confronted was resting and regaining his strength in bed. The Lord paid him a visit to inquire about how he was feeling. The knight expresses his regret and assures everyone that he will recover within a few days. Cain made his entrance, chastising his student and insisting that the student owed him an apology for being defeated by an unfamiliar barbarian. Cain observes his pupil carefully and notices that the student appears to be unhurt. Cain believed he had witnessed his student's armor being utterly destroyed, and considering the state his student was in, it would have been expected for him not to survive. However, the student's body remained unharmed. This led Cain to suspect that the barbarian might have intentionally held back his strength. The Lord nodded in agreement, remarking that possessed not only great strength but also a surprising ability to wield his power with careful accuracy, far beyond the recklessness expected of a barbarian. Cain realized that his ability to hold back so much strength implied his powers went well beyond what any knight could achieve, placing him at a level that was nothing short of supernatural. Cain drifts into a state of intense contemplation. Lord Sot's thoughts, wanting to know how believed his own strength measured up against S. Cain responded with certainty, explaining that although possessed great power, his own mastery of the sword placed him beyond the reach of any supernatural force. Despite its overwhelming strength, Cain observes that achieved this feat without relying on aura. He acknowledges that accomplishing this by ordinary methods is unfeasible, and begins to speculate whether this might be an ability possessed by the barbarians from the White Snowfield. At first the Lord doubted the news, yet now he realized it was true. Cain ponders the possibility that a legendary human might emerge from the vast, snowy plains. He questions in his mind whether it belongs to the human race or perhaps originates from a different species. He quickly rejects any suggestion that he might belong to a different race. He reflects that had he truly been heartless, he would not have let the knight live, showing no mercy toward humans. With this realization, he admits to himself that he must have been mistaken. Cain remained uneasy, his thoughts fixated on his arrival from the White Snowfield. He couldn't help but question the reason behind showing up from such a place and why it happened right at this moment. When the Lord inquires whether anything is amiss, Cain brushed off the topic, muttering under his breath about the odd favors the Emperor was always asking for, deciding it could wait until later. He calmly assures the Lord that at this moment there is no cause for concern. Cain wondered aloud whether the barbarian remained within the territory, and the Lord assured him that the man was indeed still present. Cain comes to the conclusion that he needs to see the truth with his own eyes. Later on, the captain of the guards inquired about what intended to do in the coming days. The captain handed a reward for his performance in the duel, and explained that the Lord would no longer meddle in what did within the territory. Considers that even without concrete plans, obtaining an officially recognized identity could help him steer clear of potential problems down the road. The captain points out that there are possible paths to reach this goal. One could secure support from an influential sponsor or choose the path of a mercenary. He explains that by gaining a reputation for his accomplishments as a mercenary and earning the guild's approval, he will be able to have his identity formally acknowledged. The guard captain believes that, given such impressive strength, seeking out a sponsor would be a better choice than working as a low-ranking mercenary, since those positions often leave people doing simple chores. Found the life of a mercenary captivating, imagining herself accepting missions and slaying monsters, which she believed embodied the heart of a fantasy romance. He wondered aloud about the best place to start his journey as a mercenary. In response, the captain informed him about the existence of a guild hall where such opportunities could be found. He excitedly requests the captain's guidance, and though confused, the captain consents. The story describes how mercenaries are often imagined as adventurous heroes, but in reality, they are considered the lowest class among people who lack official recognition. Even the most powerful adventurers frequently lost their lives in hidden dungeons, or ended up being blamed for underhanded deeds. When he reached the mercenary guild, he discovered the entire place thrown into disorder as a fierce fight erupted among its members. Two mercenaries exchanged harsh words, their tempers flaring as they hurled insults back and forth. Spectators placed wagers as they watched the battle unfold. In the vicinity, a woman approached Rosa at the reception desk to inquire about the latest group of recruits. Rose let out a sigh, thinking to herself that the others were all strange and beyond hope. In her mind, she recounted the latest additions to their group: an eccentric man who insisted he was a holy knight, a cunning thief, and a nun whose allegiance to a controversial deity caused everyone to doubt her. Rosa feels disappointed as she notices that none of the guests are people she considers respectable. She longed for a charming prince atop a white horse to rescue her from the monotony of her work. Just then walked into the guild, catching her off guard. Glanced around the area, quickly realizing that he was standing inside the guild hall. The battle came to an abrupt halt as all eyes turned to the barbarian, their faces frozen in astonishment. Walked up to the reception desk, expressing his intention to join the ranks of mercenaries. Rosa, feeling flustered, wanted to know why he had done it. Shares that he has multiple motives, mentioning that he learned mercenary work could lead to gaining official recognition. Rosa agrees with his understanding, but cautions him that only a proven history of accomplishments will earn him that status. Nodded in agreement, prompting Rosa to sign him up for the event after collecting 5 silver coins. She inquired about his name and age. He provided his name but admitted he was unsure of his age. Rosa decided to estimate his age and wrote down an approximate number. Once he finished registering, she handed him his mercenary tag and cautioned him to keep it safe, since it represented his new rank. Reaches out and takes the tag, signaling acceptance. He quickly inquired about the quests he could take on, making it clear that he was eager to begin without delay. Rosa presented the list of quests that he could choose from. Sighs widened in disbelief when he realized the list offered nothing but F-rank tasks, including collecting herbs, scrubbing basements, cleaning sewers and streets, and patrolling at night. Rosa, her voice tinged with anxiety, clarified that since he held the rank of F among mercenaries, these assignments were all he could receive. She fretted inwardly, fearing his barbarian pride might make him upset about the situation. As she started to outline that he could tackle more difficult assignments once he had proven himself with some experience, cut her off and declared his intention to accept one of the available quests. He directs attention toward the quest involving the collection of herbs. Rosa couldn't hide her astonishment and questioned whether he was certain, while assured her that any necessary task was acceptable to him. Wonders aloud about the location of the herbs he needs for his quest, searching for any clue that might lead him to them. Rosa, the receptionist, informed him that finding the plant would require traveling beyond the village. She then presented a photograph to help him identify the specific plant he needed. Nodded to show he understood and assured that he would return shortly, prompting Rosa to respond with uncertainty in her voice. Rosa could not hide her confusion as she tried to make sense of how calmly he accepted everything. Deep within the forest, studies the herb's unusual shape, pondering whether it might be useful for healing injuries. He makes up his mind to embark on his inaugural assignment as a hired soldier. Approximately an hour passed before made her way back to the mercenary guild. He shows Rosa an enormous stack of herbs, wanting to know if the amount will suffice. The sheer size of the pile leaves Rosa astonished. As she inspects the herbs, she finds herself taken aback by how fresh and well-preserved they are, silently observing that unlike the usual rough handling by mercenaries, these have been gathered with remarkable care. Standing tall, exuded pride as he confidently assured everyone that, regardless of how he looked, his gentle touch was something he trusted completely. Rosa expressed her appreciation for his efforts by handing him a solitary silver coin as his reward. Notices that the sum he has received would hardly cover the cost of the least expensive meal. Yet a strong sense of pride fills him, knowing this is the first time he has earned money through his own hard work. He informs Rosa, who is visibly surprised, that he feels quite pleased and wonders aloud if he might begin a new task right away. Rosa, perplexed, cannot understand how anyone could be content with such a small compensation. Expressed his desire to keep working for as long as daylight remained, showing clear enthusiasm for staying busy. Watching him, Rosa grew curious about the reason behind his cheerful mood. After observing the newcomer's strange behavior, she decides that this mercenary is just as odd as the others. As the hours slipped by, decided to take on the task of cleaning the warehouse for the day. Rosa observed that this was his third time tasked with cleaning after collecting herbs, and she puzzled over whether barbarians might actually enjoy cleaning. With a hint of uncertainty, Rosa gives her consent to his request, stepped into the warehouse and declared his intention to tidy up the place. The owner of the warehouse grew anxious when a barbarian appeared before him. Cleaning the warehouse and transporting the items came effortlessly to him. His following assignment involved cleaning the streets. Managing his power proved challenging initially, but he managed to finish the job without any significant problems. From a distance, an unseen observer tracked his movements carefully using a scope. The observer questions unusual behavior in his mind, knowing that possessed supernatural strength, enough power to influence the fate of an entire kingdom. The observer remains puzzled, unable to understand why the barbarian, known for using brute strength to handle problems, is now occupied with simple chores. Even more unusual was the way he approached these tasks with genuine dedication instead of indifference. The observer stands in utter confusion, unable to grasp what has just happened, while experiences a deep sense of pride and fulfillment from the straightforward task he has completed. Later on, collects his wages. Rosa explained that he had earned this as a reward for finishing 15 missions. The price amounted to 15 silver coins. Expressed his gratitude, assuring her that he would return the following day to continue his journey into the world of civilization. Wandered through the bustling city streets, taking in the lively scenes of people going about their everyday routines. He notices a structure nearby and realizes it is a library. As he stepped inside, the librarian grew visibly anxious. He wonders aloud whether she would be bothered if he spent some time reading a few books. Her fear grows even stronger. Silently opened the book and started to read to herself. He gazes at him with a puzzled expression, questioning whether the Snowfield barbarians might possess greater civility than those from other regions. While reading through a history book, learns that the Empire emerged victorious in the war. He recalls how this information relates to his visit several years earlier, when she had been traveling to deliver weapons to the kingdom that had just been defeated in the war. He discovers from his reading that the Empire has risen to become the leading force, and that the Kingdom of Barkin, his current home, has been reduced to little more than a subordinate territory. The story continues by describing how the Empire has already taken control of half the human world, and relentlessly pushes its borders even farther. Pondered the concept of taking control over the entire world. He felt he had spent enough time on the matters of humans, so he shifted his focus toward the subject that truly interested him, the study of non-human races. He reaches for a book filled with details about creatures that are not human, coming to understand that the stories he once thought were imaginary are actually true in this world. Kept reading, discovering stories about Manta, the winding tunnels built by dwarves, and the world's most treasure-filled caves. He learns about a village inhabited by fairies and a city in the sky where the Celestials reside. He came across information about a hidden sanctuary revered by all elves, whose whereabouts remained a mystery to everyone. Believes that with the knowledge he received from the Elf Queen, he is finally prepared to step inside the sanctuary. He discovers with astonishment that other regions exist which resemble the endless white snowfield. The book details the existence of demonic realms, forbidding territories where humans cannot survive. Within these places, grotesque and misshapen creatures dwell, and the text notes that among these realms, 5 stand out for their immense size. The silent forest encompassed all 5 of these realms. The endless darkness stretched before them, deep and unfathomable. The vast ocean depths, the endless chasm, the scene stretched out across a vast snowy field blanketed in pure white. According to the book, fearsome entities known as the Others exist within these realms, yet they are unable to enter the world of humans. As took in her surroundings, she was awestruck by how enormous the world was, especially since the snowfield by itself seemed endless. He realizes there is nothing more to gain from staying and gets ready to go. He expressed his gratitude to the frightened librarian, who managed to respond with a shaky voice. Later in the day, made her way back to the mercenary guild, seeking out Rosa to inquire about the assignments available for that day. Rosa extended the quest list toward him, offering it for him to take. At the same time, Kane spent a second day watching and became convinced of his odd nature, ultimately resolving to meet him face to face. Later that evening, strolled along with a cheerful spring in her step, feeling accomplished after finishing a dozen more missions. He believes that as these minor jobs continue to pile up, the moment when others acknowledge him as a genuine mercenary is drawing near. Without warning, he senses another presence behind him, causing him to halt in his tracks. He shifts his gaze and finds himself looking directly at Kane, who is concealed beneath a hood. Kane could hardly believe that had realized he was there. Meanwhile, turned to confront the individual who had been trailing him throughout the day, demanding to know their intentions. Kane silently wondered how it managed to spot him. He stood frozen in disbelief, unable to comprehend how anyone could have detected him when he had hidden himself with his aura, a technique so effective that even the most perceptive individuals should not have sensed him at all. Upon noticing the hooded figure remain quiet, jumps to the conclusion that the stranger must be a thief and readies himself for a confrontation, leaving Kane puzzled by his reaction. Believes that thieves can be found even in places considered safe. Kane's mind raced with anxiety, fearing that would doubt his claims if he revealed himself to be. Unlike others, viewed the thief as a chance to earn a notable accomplishment that would enhance his reputation as a mercenary. Kane's confusion deepens as he tries to make sense of the situation. At that moment, he understood that the circumstances might actually work in his favor. With accusing him of being a thief, he saw a chance to face her head-on and uncover both her real abilities and who she truly was. The clash between and Kane sets into motion. Without warning, vanished right in front of Kane, leaving him staring at empty space. Materialized suddenly behind Kane, leaving him startled. Kane comes to the understanding that remaining in place would have resulted in seizing him by the neck. Kane suddenly surged with energy, propelling himself away at impressive speed, which prompted to note how fast he was. Cain reeled in disbelief, suddenly aware of how close he had come to being discovered. What startled him even more was the absence of any aura emanating from. Observes with fascination how Cain manages to move at such impressive speed, despite relying solely on human abilities. Cain realizes that the situation has escalated beyond a mere test, prompting him to unleash the entirety of his strength. Cain lunged forward, attempting to strike, yet moved with agility, effortlessly evading his assault. Cain experienced a fresh wave of surprise, realizing that even with his heightened awareness, he still failed to respond in time. Seized Cain's arm, and Cain was overwhelmed by a powerful sensation, as though an invisible force was dragging his entire body. Despite the agony and lacking the power to compete with him, Cain makes up his mind to unleash all the strength he possesses. Cain's body became surrounded by a bright green light, catching off guard. The overwhelming energy drives him backward, as Cain studies the glowing power resting in his palm. Remained convinced that Cain was a thief and remarked on the clever tricks modern thieves used. Cain, growing frustrated, insisted that stop making such ridiculous accusations. Cain reflected silently, recognizing that was confusing the rare ability to manifest mana, a skill reserved for the most elite, with the tricks commonly used by thieves. He realizes that truly holds this belief. Cain reminded himself that the power of manifested mana was so intense that it could slice effortlessly through even solid steel. Despite the fact that a human body would normally be ripped to pieces upon impact, emerged without even a single mark on her skin. Cain watched in amazement as endured the force without any protection, relying solely on his own strength. At the same time, observed that Cain was utilizing a curious technique. Cain resolved to finish the conflict and unsheathed his sword. Before he could pull it out, pressed a finger against him, halting his movement. Cain summoned all his strength as he struggled to wrench the sword away from, whose finger held it firmly in place. He finds himself powerless, a wave of shock and desperation washing over him as he comes to the grim realization that his journey has reached its final chapter. Gazed at Cain, who lay beaten, and reflected that this must be how thieves behaved in this fantastical realm. The guard captain enters the area, his mind clouded with confusion as he tries to make sense of the situation and questions the unexpected presence of Cain. Upon witnessing the scene before him, he immediately concludes that the barbarian is responsible for launching an attack against the informed him that the thief had been captured. Holding the battered Cain in his hand, he wondered aloud whether handing over his captive to the guards would be considered valid mercenary experience. The guard captain stands frozen, unable to believe his eyes as he witnesses the barbarian humiliatingly subdue Cain, a man renowned for achieving the rare rank of transcendent. The captain attempts to clarify Cain's innocence, insisting that he is not a thief, even as jumps to the conclusion that they must already know each other. The guard shows respect to Cain, who is recognized as the soul in the entire kingdom. Puzzled, wonders aloud whether this thief truly possesses such an impressive reputation. He claims that Cain stole his silver coins and assaulted him. The captain confidently identifies the individual as the, insisting that he could never misrecognize that face. In response, questions whether the man might actually be a magician employing a spell to alter his appearance. The captain explained that any magician skilled enough to accomplish such a feat would earn the same admiration as a. Hearing this, questioned inwardly whether the title of was simply another way to refer to thieves. The captain reiterated his belief that Cain was indeed the. The captain makes up his mind to inform the Lord about the situation. The Lord stared in disbelief, his mind racing with the possibility that Master Cain might have been defeated. Later on, is overcome with regret, wishing he had taken the time to hear the entire story. Cain accepted responsibility, acknowledging that his silence was to blame, and the pair remained together, surrounded by a shared sense of remorse. The Lord could hardly believe that the barbarian had managed to defeat Cain, and disbelief filled his thoughts. He comes to the realization that the barbarian possesses greater strength than the. He carefully assessed the circumstances, observing that while transcendent beings varied in strength and Cain was likely at the bottom tier, it still seemed impossible for it to lose to a barbarian. Could not be restrained by anyone or anything. The Lord, feeling weary from the ordeal, chooses to withdraw, allowing the two individuals space to resolve their confusion through conversation. He steps away, giving them space to continue their conversation in hushed voices. Cain thought about how thoroughly he had lost, the weight of humiliation and fatigue pressing down on him. He presents himself with formality, stating that his name is Cain and that he is a master of the sword. Kettle wondered aloud whether it was a family name, prompting Cain to clarify that achieving such a rank made ordinary human titles irrelevant. Nodded in comprehension, then wondered aloud whether the move he had witnessed belonged to his repertoire. Cain revealed the energy that surrounded him, felt a surge of admiration as he realized the move was his technique. With this new understanding, he thought it was truly remarkable. Cain went on to clarify that what they were witnessing was the physical form of mysticism, which people often referred to as aura. comes to understand that the green energy he observed before is actually an aura. He expresses keen interest as he inquires about the proper way to operate it. Kane goes on to clarify that mystic powers require both careful regulation and intentional expression. Wondered aloud whether mysticism could be compared to mana. Kane explained that mysticism referred to the enigmatic force itself. When someone channeled this energy as mana, they took the path of a magician, but if they wielded it as aura, they became a swordsman. Once realized that mysticism was practiced by both mages and swordsmen, he hesitated before confessing his limited understanding. Hoping to learn more, he quietly requested that Kane share his methods with him. Kane was persistently approached with requests for guidance. Kane felt a jolt of surprise at the request, wondering why someone stronger than him would seek his advice. Responded by suggesting that the result of their battle could have changed if Kane had chosen to fight with his sword. Feels a surge of excitement at the prospect of gaining new knowledge, but Kane is anxious, fearing that his dignity could be wounded even more. Recalls the fundamental sword skills he once mastered in a previous life. Nothing else could measure up to this artwork. It embodied the essence of genuine fantasy swordsmanship, harnessing an enigmatic aura. Kane started to describe the core of his swordsmanship, emphasizing that it blended illusion with reality. He then turned his attention to, wondering aloud what had observed during his match with Kane's pupil. Comes to the understanding that the knight he had just overcome was actually a disciple of Kane. He then goes on to explain that his sword technique divides a single strike into 3 separate, genuine attacks. Realizes that this moment is the true meaning of embodiment. Meanwhile, Kane clarifies that his approach prioritizes precise technique rather than relying solely on strength. He explains that swordsmanship involves blending one's sword with their inner energy to perform mystical feats, and those who achieve mastery in this discipline earn the title of sword master. Gazes at the aura with intense curiosity, as Kane remains in disbelief that he has taken on the role of instructing a barbarian. Kane chooses to demonstrate his point through action rather than by offering a verbal explanation. Kane showcased his skill by executing a strong, decisive swing with his sword. Notices that what appeared to be one sword attack has actually become 5 separate slashes. Kane goes on to clarify that, unlike most techniques which rely on aura to produce mere illusions, his unique method allows those illusions to become tangible reality. When questioned about his thoughts on the skill, responds with assurance, expressing his belief that he is also capable of performing it. Kane stared in disbelief, unable to accept what he was hearing, and dismissed the statement as utter nonsense. Kane reflects on how he has spent his whole life striving to attain this level of skill, believing there is no way he could replicate it after just witnessing it a single time. Decides that demonstrating will be quicker than explaining, so she reaches for an axe. He positioned himself firmly and swung the axe with incredible swiftness. Initially, Kane assumes the rapid actions are simply driven by raw strength. Despite the imitation, the strike carves 5 distinct marks into the wall, closely resembling the results of Kane's original move. Smoke curled upward from the blade of his axe. He turned to Kane, seeking his thoughts on the matter. Kane realized that the outcome closely resembled his own method, despite the fact that it was achieved purely through overwhelming speed and strength. Kane insisted that Smooth was nothing more than a quick, unskilled swipe, emphasizing that real swordsmanship is meant for genuine battles. Responds by questioning whether achieving a comparable outcome shouldn't be sufficient. Kane felt a surge of frustration welling up inside him, fully aware that his point was valid. Overcome by frustration, he seizes his sword and boldly issues another challenge to Kane released his most powerful move, causing to question whether his body had been torn apart. Kane described how the technique worked, revealing that it involved pushing aura control to the highest level in order to separate the body. He urges to try copying the move he just demonstrated. Launches an attack of his own. He swung his axe with a powerful swirling motion, unleashing a storm of sheer strength. Kane's skills were no match for the onslaught. He found himself utterly overpowered. Once Assault left the arena in ruins, he turned to Kane, seeking to know what Kane thought about the situation. Kane drops to his knees, overwhelmed by a crushing sense of hopelessness. He breaks down in tears, overwhelmed by the realization that his years of dedication to swordsmanship and everything he has worked for now seem worthless. He could hardly believe what was happening, realizes that Kane's mind is even more delicate than he had originally believed. Walked up to the fallen Kane, expressing admiration for Kane's skill with a sword. He made light of his own efforts, claiming that he had only been swinging his axe quickly and that his actions didn't count as true swordsmanship. Kane comes to understand that skills are genuine, acknowledging inwardly that the impressive technique he witnessed was not an illusion. He also accepts that he could never hope to achieve such a profound level of mastery himself. Kane steadied his nerves, reassuring himself that his unique ability to blend illusion and reality through his swordsmanship remained unmatched and important. He confidently boasts about his perfect sword skills, insisting that the barbarian must be out of his mind. He exclaims that moving quickly enough to make a convincing illusion without using aura surpasses what any human is capable of. Upon witnessing Kane's surge of emotion, inquired whether Kane might be willing to share the real essence behind his technique. Kane, realizing his display, offered an apology for his behavior and responded with understanding, assuring Kane that he held no grudge. Kane started teaching by outlining the importance of mastering aura control as the foundation for using real techniques. However, he emphasized that before anyone could control aura, they needed to grasp the concept of mysticism. He reveals that mastering mysticism is essential for any mage, swordsman, or sorcerer to advance, and only those who have faith in gods are able to avoid this requirement. Wondered aloud whether divine power existed as its own distinct force. Kane nodded in agreement, going on to clarify that miracles stem directly from the gods themselves, rather than being connected to anyone's individual talents. Nods showing that he understands. Kane explained that mysticism was a hidden force residing inside each person, and the choices people made in using this force shape their entire destiny. He clarifies that before anyone can use aura, gather mana, or command spirits, they need to grasp the essence of this mystical knowledge. He explains that mysticism unfolds in 5 distinct stages, beginning with the most basic, unveiling the mystery itself, which involves an awareness, perception, and intuitive understanding of it. Kettle wondered aloud if anyone else could sense it, but Kane shook his head, remarking that only those with special abilities were able to detect it at all. He explains that individuals with the ability to perceive it are known as third rank. He goes on to clarify that mysticism is divided into 5 ranks, each determined by how well a person can manage its power. He recited the 5 main categories: third rank, second rank, first rank, transcendent, and hero. His mind flashed back to his earlier discussion with, and he understood that this must be what she had meant. Kane clarified that the ranking system was merely a tool for simplicity, emphasizing that the difference between each tier was actually vast. Nodded to show he understood, while Kane declared that the lesson was about to begin. Kane announces that the initial step involves revealing the secret. He tells to push his awareness as far as possible in order to sense the unknown, clarifying that this involves awakening feelings and perceptions that has never experienced before. He encourages the other to notice the gentle wind, the sensation of the ground beneath them, and the changing air currents, guiding him to sense the distinct patterns hidden in these elements. Paused thoughtfully, making an effort to remember and carry out the given directions. He opened his eyes and admitted that he didn't feel anything. Kane's eyes widened in astonishment as he confessed that he had expected someone with strength to notice it right away. He notes that those with greater physical strength are usually more likely to perceive the mystery, yet he suspects that could prove to be a rare exception. He questions whether the strangeness of the white snowfield is the cause. Responded with uncertainty, admitting he was unaware of the answer. He reflected on his experiences in the snowfield, noting that none of the people he knew there had ever encountered such a mysterious feeling. Kane chooses a different approach and channels his energy straight into, aiming to help him navigate the situation. Wonders aloud whether aura will be handed over to him. Kane acknowledged the resemblance and insisted that he get ready. Kane rested his hand gently on his shoulder, guiding him to let go of tension and turn his attention inward, encouraging him to sense the energy moving within himself. Kane stared in disbelief, his mind racing with questions about the nature of the body before him, uncertain whether it could even be called human. He believes that his physique is so densely muscled, it feels as hard as stone. As soon as observes Kane's uncertainty, Kane quickly offers an apology and assures that he will start right away. Kane began channeling his aura, convinced that the key to progress lay in unlocking the hidden enigma within. He experienced another wave of surprise as he discovered that the elusive pathway inside his body had vanished from his senses. He quickly amends his statement, admitting that the object is out of his reach. He likens the sensation to plunging into an endless ocean, where his presence fails to encounter anything, or to pushing through an area so dense it feels almost impenetrable. Kane insisted that their efforts were pointless. Hearing this, his voice trembled with concern as she wondered aloud if Kane believed he simply wasn't gifted enough. Kane shook his head, indicating that was not the case, and emphasized that ultimately each person needed to discover their own way forward. Acknowledges his understanding, yet Kane reveals a startling truth. He was unable to discover that path within his body. Clearly startled, wonders aloud whether he is completely unable to detect the mystery, but Kane quickly dismisses the idea, clarifying that he had not even been able to determine if the path was real in the first place. He noted that his body possessed an unusual quality, being so dense and profound that the aura was unable to penetrate its core effectively. Kane realizes he has never witnessed anything like this before. Sheer physical power manages to block the effects of aura entirely. Felt a surge of frustration as he questioned whether even A would be able to assist him. Kane acknowledged the uncertainty, explaining that he was unable to verify anything for certain. He realized he was unsure whether the path of mystery was truly present within. Considering his uncertainty, he thought it might be best to seek out others who possessed greater expertise in aura manipulation, or perhaps make a journey to the Tower of Magic in search of more definitive answers. Cain expressed remorse too, reassures everyone that things are satisfactory for the moment, acknowledging that he still has the chance to gain more knowledge in the future. He expressed his gratitude, reflecting on how much he had gained from the experience. Cain has noticed that unlike the other barbarians he has encountered, who were always unruly, constantly seeking loot and driven by a thirst for alcohol and chaos, this one stands apart from the rest. Cain wondered aloud to whether he had ever thought about making this kingdom his permanent home. Asks for clarification, prompting Cain to elaborate that he is referring to pledging allegiance to the kingdom and being granted a noble title. Cain explained that given his impressive abilities would likely earn a high position, and Cain intended to personally support him as his sponsor. Instantly rejects the idea, making it clear that he has no desire to be restricted by any commitments. Cain secretly wished that bringing the barbarian to the royal palace might offer a chance for freedom from the empire's control. Cain made another attempt to convince him, questioning whether the prospect of earning a noble title failed to spark his interest. Responds by expressing his intention to seek out his own sources of enjoyment. Cain recognizes the choice that has been made and quietly comes to terms with it. Expressed his gratitude once more, assuring that this kindness would not be forgotten. As Cain moves farther away, his mind lingers on the absurd notion that had recently crossed his thoughts. For a brief moment he believed that mastering was within his grasp. However, he soon came to understand that was beyond anyone's control, a barbarian ruled solely by his own desires and instincts. He realizes that could pose more of a challenge than the other barbarians, since her actions are difficult to anticipate. Later on, Cain and Lord met to talk about the situation. Cain let out a heavy sigh, inwardly puzzled by what could be going through the Emperor's mind as he pursued his ambition to invade the demonic territories. The Lord comes to understand that the Emperor is intent on achieving this conquest. He wonders aloud about the Emperor's intentions, observing that the scouts are losing their lives pointlessly, all under the pretense of gathering intelligence. Cain nodded solemnly, his mind turning to the possibility that the Emperor suspected him of being the ancient Emperor reborn. The Lord explained that this issue concerned events yet to come, since their forces had not finished taking control of every human territory. The Lord came to the realization that an invasion was inevitable in the future. Cain agreed with this point, explaining that since their area belonged to imperial territory, a summons could arrive without warning at any moment. Cain reflected on how peculiar the world had already become, and now, with the Emperor losing his sanity, things felt even more unsettling. The Lord silently questioned whether the circulating rumors held any truth. Cain acknowledged the circulating rumors, announcing that the demons had indeed started to take action. He mentions that, while there is no official confirmation yet, the frequency of dungeon appearances has become unusual, and whispers have spread that disturbances from the demonic realm may be starting to escape into the outside world. He comes to the realization that events are unfolding, and they certainly do not benefit humanity. Cain remarked that the strangest thing might have already appeared, alluding to, and the Lord nodded in agreement. When Cain seeks his thoughts, the Lord responds by admitting uncertainty. Lord finished his last evaluation of, pointing out to Cain that, while showed no signs of aggression, there was little else he could confirm about him. The following day, wandered through the bustling city streets. He observes that others react with fear and anxiety whenever they catch sight of him. He questions whether the fearful responses from those around him are caused by the way he is dressed. Wrongly assumed that the issue stemmed from his animal hide clothing, believing that others saw his attire as uncivilized. He excitedly makes up his mind to purchase proper attire that fits in with society. He steps inside a shop filled with clothing displays. The shop owner's face turned pale with fear the moment he caught sight of him. When inquired about purchasing clothing, the shopkeeper regretfully explained that there were no garments available in his size. However, the owner offered to create a custom outfit for if he was willing to wait a little while. Felt a surge of happiness at the suggestion and readily accepted the idea of placing a special order. The shop owner assures him that he will be contacted once the work is complete. The shop owner trembles as he envisions furious response should the outfit fail to please him, silently questioning whether he will make it through this ordeal unscathed. As made his way toward the guild hall, he noticed a tiny blue gem shimmering with a soft glow lying on the ground. He lifts the object and studies it carefully, noticing the strange light it emits. He chooses to seek answers regarding the matter at the guild hall. At that spot, he inquires whether Rosa recognizes the significance of the gem. He mentions that he came across it while making his way to this place. He observed that the object appeared unusual for a bead, and Rosa consented to examine it more closely. She studies the object closely, observing that it lacks the appearance of a gemstone and appears to be either polished or crafted by hand. She observes that the object lacks a name, yet it appears to be quite precious. As she studied the object, a sudden burst of light enveloped her, causing her to slip into a dreamlike trance. Snapped his fingers to catch her attention, then checked to see if she was all right. Rosa opened her eyes, feeling disoriented, while observed her and remarked that it looked as though the gem had somehow attracted Rosa's thoughts, but then brushed off the incident as unimportant. Rosa notices that the gem emits an unusual energy and finds it hard to determine what it is, so she recommends getting an expert to examine it. Graciously refused the invitation, expressing his preference to discover the answer on his own, because he believed that unraveling the mystery was what made the experience enjoyable. He shifted the conversation in a new direction, steering it toward a discussion about the quests assigned for the day. Rosa passed the quest list to him, the paper covered in straightforward tasks, approached the board and examined the list of available quests. Later in the evening, following another productive day at work, relaxed, content with the achievements he had made throughout the day. He studies the enigmatic gem once more, curiosity about its origin and purpose filling his mind, as memories of the way it influenced Rosa resurface. A sudden voice echoed from the strange bead, calling him to approach. A lingering voice reverberated through his mind, leaving him to question whether it was urging him to move toward an unknown destination. He is entertained by the bead projecting a mental map for him, and he questions whether this could be a form of magic that manipulates his thoughts. After considering his options for a brief moment, he makes up his mind and chooses to leave. While making his way forward, he mentally urged the persistent voice to calm down, promising that he was already on his way. He navigates using the map in his mind, arriving at a shadowy, concealed spot, and questions internally whether he has found the right place. A mystical doorway suddenly materializes in front of him. Stepped into the room and declared that he had arrived, then looked around to find out who had summoned him. A menacing presence observed the arrival of a new victim, remarking with dark satisfaction that this foolish barbarian would serve well as the next tribute. The undead sorcerer, Manhwa, announced that the ceremony to restore his life was about to commence. The story unveils the history of the long ago, during an era marked by turmoil, a wicked sorcerer cunningly influenced rulers and sparked devastating conflicts. Despite the string of wicked acts he committed, his actions were ultimately uncovered, leading to his downfall at the hands of courageous heroes. However, just as he was about to be vanquished, he managed to shift his soul into a vessel of life, transforming himself into a powerful. Refers to a creature that secures eternal life by placing its soul inside a special object known as a life vessel. The wicked sorcerer transformed himself into a secretly devising plans to rise again. In order to finish his resurrection, he required countless souls as offerings. He chose a secluded area to hide where he spread magical beads, each one meant to attract unsuspecting victims, drawing them in one after another. The believed his scheme was unfolding smoothly, yet confusion crept in when he noticed a barbarian in this isolated area, which he had specifically picked to remain unnoticed. He notices that the person's presence feels out of place. He observed his imposing figure and decided that his great size would make him an ideal offering for the ritual. They revealed the nature of his trap, describing how he had cast an enchantment on the beads so they would lure only those unfamiliar with the secrets of mysticism. Believing to be nothing more than a typical barbarian unfamiliar with mystical arts, he convinces himself that apparent immunity to the magic is simply a trick of perception. The turn two, proposing that serve as the foundation for his triumphant return to life, approached a set of massive doors, their imposing presence casting a shadow over her arrival. As he stepped inside, he discovered the seated regally upon a throne. His excitement surged as he recognized that he was witnessing a legendary antagonist straight from the tales of fantasy realms. He stared in astonishment at, clearly puzzled by how the bead's magic had failed to affect him, and demanded an explanation. When noticed the scattered remains of previous victims, he realized that they had been using this gruesome display to attract unsuspecting people. Unable to detect any trace of magic from, the grew puzzled, and decided that must simply be an average barbarian. He suspects that possesses a powerful artifact to shield his mind, but insists that he does not own anything like that. They remained skeptical, convinced that if the magic had truly worked, he would have simply walked past without causing any trouble. They realized that defeating would require brute strength, so he called forth his army of skeleton minions to aid him. Comes to the realization that he has ended up inside a dungeon, a place where a sinister lurks, and he quickly grasps what is happening around him. He delivered a forceful strike that broke the skeleton apart. He noted that it was not as strong as he had anticipated. This fury grew, and he menaced that he would rip the man's limbs apart, calling forth additional skeletons to his side. He commands his followers to destroy their target. In an instant, leaps forward and intercepts them before they can react. Effortlessly, she defeated every one of her opponents. The reacts with surprise, reassured himself that guidance had been accurate. When a skeleton's skull was shattered, it would cease to exist. He feels let down because he thought they would command powerful death knights instead of only summoning ordinary skeletons. With fury burning in its eyes, they summoned an even more powerful assault. He announced his intention to stop restraining himself. With a surge of power, he called forth a fresh servant to his side. A skeletal knight clad in full armor emerged, catching off guard as she noticed the presence of yet another skeletal warrior in the area. He becomes curious, pondering whether the skeletal knight has unique characteristics compared to others. They commanded the knight to launch an assault, herself to confront the skeletal knight that they had summoned. He raises his arm to intercept the knight's blow, then swiftly retaliates, his force so powerful that the knight's armor and shield crumble under the impact. Observed that the knight felt particularly strong and unwavering. They commanded his knight to unleash every bit of its magical energy. The darkness of the night seemed to hum with an intense, invisible force. The entity releases all of its strength, braces himself as the blow lands squarely against him. He considers the skeletal knight summoned by the to be rather strange. With just one powerful punch, he utterly destroys it, crushed the remnants beneath their feet, wondering aloud if that was the extent of the challenge. The utterly astonished demands to know the identity of the figure before him. As retreats a step, the perceives his movement as a sign of fear and warns him to tremble. He warns that consequences await anyone who dares to trespass in his domain. Clearly puzzled, explains that he was drawn there solely by the gem's call. He then questions the, wondering if it was not the himself who had originally spread the gems. This accusation leaves the speechless and stunned. There comes to a harsh realization. All those who arrived, even the barbarian, had been drawn in by the tempting gems he had placed throughout the area. The now identified as shouted at to hold his tongue. He proudly declared that he was once a powerful sorcerer, famous for bringing down 5 entire kingdoms and battling against legendary heroes. Silently measures this lengthy name against that of the elf queen, curious if having an elaborate name is currently fashionable in this realm. They paid no attention to the interruption, instead commanding him to serve as the foundation for this return to life. He unleashed a surge of dark magic, sending a powerful spell into the air. Realizes that the magic at work is designed to control how people feel. The narration reveals that invented this special spell, designed to pull out a person's negative feelings and imprison them within those emotions, eventually causing their mind to break apart. They stood with unwavering confidence, certain that a barbarian lacking any mystical abilities would be utterly powerless when faced with genuine magic. He feels uncertain about how to handle, observing that appears changed and lacks any noticeable magical items. He made up his mind to take the boy for research, and commanded his skeleton minions to seize the boy and pull him off. The skeletons drew closer too, who appeared defenseless. He breaks them apart without any effort. The size widened in disbelief, unable to process the unexpected turn of events. He struggled to comprehend why his mind control spell, which was supposed to succeed without fail, had not worked. Shot the sarcastic look, questioning whether it planned to do anything besides stand by and observe. Without waiting for response, attempted to repeat the earlier maneuver involving the skeletons. He characterizes his own techniques as dull, a remark that infuriates the believes that not even the most extraordinary humans are capable of withstanding magic that manipulates emotions. Teased him by questioning why he didn't just cast an easier spell like Fireball, a remark that the found offensive. The raised its skeletal hands and started uttering the words of an even stronger spell. He releases a powerful surge of dark magic, aiming to engulf the entire world and throw it into utter turmoil. His gaze lights up with enthusiasm as he observes the breathtaking show of magic unfolding before him. The commanded that be consumed. The assault swallowed whole, leaving no part of him untouched. The let out a triumphant laugh, certain he had won, but then an unexpected fit of coughing interrupted his celebration. He fell to the ground, drained of every bit of magic, yet certain that his last spell would succeed. Stepped out of the swirling dust, clearly impressed by the recent attack. The stared in utter disbelief, unable to process what had just happened. Appeared in front of him without a single scratch, calmly questioning if that was the extent of his efforts. The stared in disbelief, stunned that the attack had failed once again. He believes he cast his strongest mind control magic, a spell so intense it ought to have broken even the strongest hero's will. He questioned hopelessly, wanting to know what truly was. In response, explained that despite the impressive display of the attack, it hadn't left much of an impact on him. Informed that if those were all the tricks he had, it was now's opportunity to act. The stared in disbelief as he understood that had arrived fully aware of who he truly was. The cackled with madness, convinced that worked for the Empire. He marveled at the Empire's swift and clever intelligence network, impressed by how quickly they had managed to find him. He promises himself that he will return and take control of the world again. The concluded that was likely created at the human farm he'd once heard rumors about in the Empire, a facility designed to cultivate people with unique abilities. He realizes that the person is a highly skilled assassin whose mission is to end his life. In spite of everything, he raises his voice in defiance, declaring his intent to defeat and bring down the Empire. Stood in utter confusion, questioning whether the had lost his mind. In one last act of desperation, he unleashed a powerful spell and let out a furious scream, insisting that his body be surrendered. He attempts to take control of by infiltrating his thoughts. The story reveals that by taking this action, he will remain stuck in his current body forever, unless he manages to regain his status as a. He announces that his body belongs to him now. Within the confines of his mind, he experiences a wave of astonishment and bewilderment. He questioned whether this strange place might be the inner realm belonging to the Barbarian. He gazed around in awe, overwhelmed by sights so unfamiliar that he understood simply being here could twist and break a person's sanity. He let out a furious scream, insisting that the Empire was not responsible for what had happened. His thoughts start to unravel. Waits outside, utterly bewildered by the situation. He believes the whispered something under its breath before unexpectedly falling to the ground. He felt let down. Although the shadowy presence had made an impact, it amounted to nothing more, and he had hoped to witness some of this magical abilities. He comes to the realization that in this world lacks significant strength. Chose to collect the rewards and noticed that the staff emitted a bright glow. He lifted the staff, curiosity filling his thoughts as he considered whether it might aid him in performing spells, and whether holding onto it could grant him magical abilities. He chooses not to tell anyone about what he has found. He notices a vase nearby and begins to question whether it might serve as this vessel of immortality. He chooses to bring the item to Rosa so she can examine it, yet an uneasy sense lingers within him, as if an important piece is absent. He spots an unusual structure ahead that resembles a doorway. They started to question whether a secret room might be concealed somewhere nearby. He activated a hidden device on the throne, prompting a voice to announce that his answer was right. A concealed doorway slid aside, exposing the clandestine chamber where they conducted forbidden rituals. He finds himself curious about the identities of the people inside, and tries to imagine where they might have come from. Everyone in the room showed shock and anxiety the moment he appeared, considered his options regarding the group, and ultimately chose to head back to the territory for the time being. He is confident that after he shares what happened, someone will likely be assigned to handle the problem. Upon his return to the mercenary guild, Rosa noticed his early arrival and welcomed him back. Acknowledges that an unexpected issue has arisen. He explains to her that the conversation concerns the gem he had revealed to her the previous day. Rosa assumes he must be kidding when he mentions discovering a, however, insists that his words were meant seriously. Rosa remained doubtful, questioning in her mind the likelihood of one of the world's five showing up in such an isolated location. In response, offered her a ceramic pot as evidence to support his claim. He expressed his belief that the object was the life vessel and requested that she examine it to determine its value. Rosa stared in disbelief as she understood that he had been completely serious. Mentioned that several individuals had been present within the Slayer. He reflected on his earlier intention to bring them along but realized their souls had already passed on. Deciding to leave them behind for the moment, he expressed hope that the guild would eventually send others to take care of the matter. Rosa pieced together the clues, recalling the string of mysterious disappearances that had plagued the territory lately, and came to the unsettling conclusion that these missing people must have fallen prey to the. She became flustered and hurried to assure everyone that she would contact help right away. Not long after, the captain of the guards bursts onto the scene, his voice raised as he demands information about the, while responds with a composed and steady greeting. Calmly informed the captain that all issues had been resolved, insisting it was nothing to worry about. The captain inquired about this name, bringing up the name Cases. Hearing this, admitted that the name did seem familiar. The captain instantly realized who the name belonged to. The narrator revealed that had once been a powerful sorcerer who, a century earlier, had plunged the world into turmoil by wielding magic that could control people's emotions. He claimed responsibility for driving rulers to insanity and causing the collapse of 5 entire kingdoms. Pointed out that the had not been very remarkable, mentioning that the creature had managed to bring about its own destruction while engaging in bizarre behavior. The captain struggles to accept that someone as renowned as would be responsible for his own downfall, so he turns to seeking a more detailed explanation. Mentions that he has little else to contribute. The captain realizes that informing the Lord right away is necessary. Afterward, the Lord and the captain meet to talk about what has happened. The Lord admits that he does not understand why it would appear so close to their land. He questioned whether a different kind of creature might have been responsible. The captain dismisses that possibility, relying on the statements given by the survivors and the proof provided by the life vessel. The Lord reflects on the grave implications of keeping this source of life so close to the borders of his domain. The situation had become so perilous that the Empire was certain to dispatch investigators, a fact that caused even greater concern since Cain was currently away from the territory. He views the entire ordeal as a significant source of stress. He instructed that a messenger be to travel to the kingdom, yet he couldn't help but think they were rather lucky. The guard captain nodded in agreement, reflecting that without the barbarians' discovery of their own land would likely have been attacked first. The Lord came to the conclusion that the had probably been making arrangements for his own return to life. He realizes that there was nothing ordinary about the situation. The Lord believes that an act so remarkable should be honored with a worthy reward. However, he is uncertain if his own land has anything valuable enough to give in return. The following morning, a servant, clearly distressed, hurriedly roused the Lord from his slumber. The servant approached and announced that Lady Aquas, known as the heretic inquisitor of the sun god, had arrived, leaving the Lord visibly stunned by the news. He feels puzzled as he tries to figure out the reason for her visit. The heretic inquisitor makes an entrance before all her majesty. The Lord, feeling anxious, greets the newcomer and shares his name with her. She expressed her gratitude to him for being such a welcoming host. She revealed her name as Aquas and explained that she served as the heretic inquisitor dedicated to the sun god. It is noted that she became the youngest person in history to receive this honor. Stories recall how she defeated 7 sorcerers and on her own brought an end to a massive ritual. At present, she holds the title of the continent's strongest heretic inquisitor, commanding a level of power that exceeds what Lourdes possesses. Whenever she stands before them, even the empire submits to the will of the sun god. The Lord found himself questioning the purpose behind her visit once more, while Aqua observed that there had been an unusual amount of commotion in the territory lately. The Lord clarified that there had been a small issue inside a dungeon, but it had already been taken care of. He assured everyone that her arrival was unrelated to the. When he inquired about the purpose of her visit, she explained that she was there to discuss the prophecy. Before revealing any specifics about the prophecy, she expressed her desire to first verify the recent events that had taken place within the territory. The Lord, his voice edged with concern, wonders aloud whether she is referring to the Barbarian and the. She nodded in agreement and mentioned that was most likely. The Lord reacted with surprise upon realizing that she was aware of the truth, while Aquas informed him that the proof had arrived. He offers her the vessel that holds the essence of the. Aqua's eyes widened in disbelief when the life vessel appeared before him. She wonders aloud whether the Barbarian remains within the territory. The Lord acknowledges that he remains present at that location. Questioned in his mind whether the Barbarian could have been the one to overcome, the Lord acknowledged that such a possibility did exist. He revealed the last astonishing truth that he had personally defeated Lord Cain, leaving Aquas utterly stunned. Aquas realized that a formidable newcomer had emerged and wanted to know which tribe the Barbarian belonged to. Lord informed her of his claim to originate from the White Snowfield, leaving Aquas stunned and questioning how a being from a demon realm could exist beyond its borders. She suspects that this wild stranger could be the very person who drew her to this place. She expresses her desire to meet the Barbarian face to face. At the same time, studies the staff, convinced that it serves as a magical aid, and makes a mental note to question some mages about it in the future. He suddenly becomes aware that a certain moment has arrived. The guard captain entered and relayed that the Inquisitor, known for pursuing heretics in the name of the sun god, had summoned him to the church for a meeting. The captain demanded that behave with due respect, prompting to respond with a calm reassurance. Approached the church where the captain was already waiting for her. The person appeared anxious, as declared that it was time for everyone to depart. Pondered the reality of gods inhabiting this world, considering how they occasionally granted their power to mortals or even chose to appear among them in person. He believes the church serves as a meeting place for people devoted to the gods. Stood in awe, captivated by the stunning architecture of the sun god's church. The captain informed him that a guide would escort him inside and expressed gratitude for his cooperation. Stepped into the grand and awe-inspiring church, taking in its impressive beauty. Upon arrival, 3 priestesses clad in white robes welcome the newcomer. One of the individuals informs him that Lady Aquas has been anticipating his arrival and will personally guide him to the designated room. Encountered, who served as the Inquisitor denounced as a heretic by followers of the sun god. He called himself the Barbarian and conveyed how glad he was to make her acquaintance. Aquas caught sight of his smile and found herself curious about what it might signify, while concluded that the other person must possess considerable talent. Wanted to know why he had been called there. Aqua began to explain that the matter involved recent events in the dungeon, focusing on the who asserted had been vanquished. She went on to explain that had caused terrible harm across the land, and once he transformed into only a true hero stood a chance of defeating him. Acknowledged the information, but maintained that the he encountered had merely been a that destroyed itself. He explains that he is able to share only the events he personally witnessed. Aqua recommended that she permit the sun god she worshipped to witness their discussion. She tells him that any falsehood spoken before the god will trigger a harmful response, leading to realize that the deity acts as a supernatural detector of lies. Aquas believes that because he is a barbarian, he will turn down the offer. Questioned why anyone would turn down such an offer, seeing it as a unique chance to witness a god's power firsthand, and he accepted with enthusiasm, ready to begin right away. Aqua stared in disbelief, puzzled by the unexpected excitement radiating from him. ACQAS wondered aloud whether this suggestion made Catal uncomfortable. Asked what she meant, prompting her to explain that she was referring to the god observing him. Considered this and questioned why that should be a problem, confidently thinking that he had no secrets to conceal since he had always been truthful. Aquas nodded in acceptance and started to pray. She reached out to her deity, believing that the divine presence gazed down from the heavens, witnessing the radiant brilliance of the sun. To uncover any remaining lies, radiant light swept across the surroundings, illuminating everything in its path. Becomes aware of a vast force that goes beyond anything words can capture. He becomes aware that this presence is interested in learning more about him. Feels a wave of relief wash over him when nothing bad happens, so he moves forward and starts the ritual. She announces that from this moment forward, no one is allowed to tell lies while standing inside the glowing pillar. Nodded to show that he understood. With the sun god watching their every move, an inquisitor sat down and started talking. Broke down how the dungeon run went down, talking about the time he took on the. While he was sharing, the divine power around him just stayed chill, no weird vibes or anything. Everything checked out. Everything he shared was straight-up facts. Thought to himself that the probably wasn't at full power when he was getting ready for his resurrection. Definitely got lucky. If had been at his peak, there's no way this barbarian would still be standing in front of her right now. Once everything wrapped up, checked if she still had any second thoughts. She admitted it and said sorry for stepping out of line. He just brushed it off, saying it was all good since he actually liked how different the whole thing was. After all that, Aqua wanted the green light to throw out one last personal question. After he said yes, she got all nervous. He looked him dead in the eyes and straight up asked if he really came from the white snowfield, no messing around. Just nodded and let everyone know it was really him, staying chill the whole time. Aqua just froze, totally thrown off, trying to wrap her head around how anyone could actually come from that demon realm. Her mind jumped straight to the old story the Emperor used to tell about the Ashen Barbarian, and suddenly it all started to line up. Her red eyes lit up, catching Smooth. She didn't expect him to flip it and want to ask her something back. Wanted to know what brought to this exact spot. She told him she had stuff to take care of on her own. Just stared her down, eyes sharp, basically calling her out and wondering if she was really just there to figure out if he was some kind of outcast. Aquas got caught off guard and tried to play it cool, acting like it wasn't a big deal. Explained that he was actually talking about the Eye of God. He pointed out how wild it was that the gods actually showed up just to watch them talk, way bigger than just checking if someone was lying. With the god's power making sure nobody could lie, was basically forced to come clean and own up to what he said. Realized she'd been after him since the start. Didn't get it. She only started thinking he could be the guy from the prophecy when she showed up in the area. But after checking things out with that whole divine test, it turned out he wasn't the one. Finally owned up to everything and said sorry for not being real about what she wanted. Was down for it, thinking there was something cool about the whole thing. He decided this was the perfect moment to find out what that prophecy was actually about. Paused for a second, holding onto the sun pendant around her neck. She wasn't the type to just spill her secrets. Usually, only people she really trusted got to hear stuff like this. Still, she made up her mind and started to talk. Aqua started explaining the prophecy too, breaking it down so he could really get what was going on. He looked straight up, stunned, like he just saw something wild. After a while, Aqua's just zoned out, standing next to the big church window, totally caught up in his own thoughts. Everything stopped when footsteps echoed nearby. She spun around, curious to see who just showed up. Lord showed up. He could tell looked stressed. She told him she'd met someone, but instead of clearing things up, it just left her more confused than before. The Lord wanted to know who this person was. Knew for sure now, was definitely a barbarian from the white snowfield. The Lord couldn't believe what he was hearing and looked at her, waiting to see if she was serious. She just nodded, letting him know it was for real. If people found out about this, the whole world would probably go wild. The Lord can't help but regret that what he brushed off as gossip turned out to be real after all. The Lord starts worrying, noticing that a bunch of people, especially the Emperor, are all interested in checking out the white snowfield. Everyone knew things would get wild if the Emperor actually did something about this. The whole place could go off the rails, no cap. Aquas lets him know everything's under control. Her group's got the whole mess covered and they're planning to keep the barbarians hidden from everyone else. The Lord can finally relax, knowing he doesn't have to stress about it anymore. He wonders if everyone from the white snowfield is built like. He just shakes his head, thinking that if everyone was like him, they would bounced from the snowfield ages ago and already taken over everything. The Lord backs her up, saying the barbarians are all over the place. And yeah, they're strong, but honestly, they just aren't that smart. It's just how they are. He starts thinking about how wild things could get if these super strong creatures ever got smart too. Aquas lets him know she's heard isn't just tough, he's actually smart too. She also mentions that people are saying the new barbarian king isn't like the ones before him. Aquas remembers meeting him once and could tell right away he wasn't like the other barbarians. The Lord thinks these two meeting up might actually be pretty interesting, but Aqua isn't having it at all. The Lord didn't see that coming. Aqua keeps going, pointing out how barbarians and the people who follow the gods really don't get along. He makes it clear that these barbarians are getting stronger, and honestly, everyone should pay attention to that. The Lord switched things up and wanted to know what the prophecy was about, specifically, what was so important that she and needed a secret meeting. She says she had to check something first, and when the Lord wants to know what it was, he waits for her answer. She answers, saying she just wanted to find out if was actually human. He couldn't tell if the guy was actually human or just faking it. The Lord froze, caught off guard, and wanted to know the exact words of the prophecy. Aqua stands in front of the big window, getting ready to show what's inside. As soon as she steps up, the Lord just stands there frozen, barely able to process what happened. He's kind of just mumbling to himself, clearly not believing what he's seeing. Later on, the Lord calls back in, lets him know things have been going smooth in the territory because of his help, then wants to know what's up and why he got called in. The Lord lets him know there's something important he needs to share, since he's the one in charge around here. Looked like he didn't care, but the Lord kept talking anyway. He told everyone he'd set up a reward for, just to thank him for stepping up and saving the territory. The Lord tells his people to bring out the reward. His face changes fast, he wasn't expecting that at all. One of the guards steps up and puts the reward right in front of him. He noticed a little pouch made of leather. Lord lets him know this isn't just some normal pouch, telling him to check it out for himself. Grabs the pouch thinking there's something unique about it. The Lord nudges him to go ahead and see what's in there. He found out it was actually a special bag, not just any regular one. He explains that the bag can hold a bunch of stuff, basically as much as you can fit in there. The inside of the place was about as big as the reception hall they were chilling in. Can't believe what he's seeing. It's the first time he's ever come across an actual artifact, something legit built with magic. The Lord explains he can toss in anything he wants, no matter how big it is compared to the pouch's opening. Gets hyped and grabs his big axe, ready to try this out right away. He's standing there with his axe, staring at the tiny gap, not really sure if it'll even go through. The axes disappeared into the pouch instantly, and he just stood there, caught off guard. The Lord tells him that grabbing anything is simple, just stick your hand in and picture what you want. Gives it a shot and no problem pulls his axe out again. He can't help but think it's actually pretty wild. The Lord hands him the reward for saving the territory, hoping it's something he'll actually be into. So all in, he's pumped and already thinking about how he's going to use it. The Lord sees that's hyped and feels good about wrapping things up. He starts thinking about the prophecy again, worried about what's going down back in his far-off territory. He remembers what this said about weird stuff from the demon realms popping up everywhere, and how it meant something big was going down. The Lord thinks back to the prophecy and realizes it lines up with what's happening now. He thinks back to when Aqua's warned him about what was coming. A serious threat was about to roll into their area and it wouldn't just stop there. Whatever it was, it'd end up spreading everywhere. Turns out, over in the Barkan territory, all these villages are linked up through their own network. Out of nowhere, nobody could reach that village anymore. Nobody really thought it was a big deal at first, but when some guys from the next village went to check things out and just disappeared, everyone started paying attention. After that, the Lord called in his own guards, but they vanished too. That's when the Lord finally got it. He could tell right away that things were about to get risky. At the mercenary guild later on, heads over to Rosa to see what quests are up for grabs today. She lets him know the Lord needs something done and it sounds serious. Wants to know what's going on and asks what the request is all about. She lays it all out. The job is to check out this village that just went silent. All he's got to do is show up, figure out what's going on, and that's it. The pay's honestly crazy for something that sounds this easy. Thinks the mission sounds cool, so he jumps on it right away. Rosa just smiled like she knew this would happen all along. He showed up where all the mercenaries for the mission were hanging out. Didn't expect to see show up. His sudden entrance totally caught her off guard. He hears someone call his name, sounding totally surprised. Shows up rocking his fresh custom clothes, and Hayes spots the new fit right away. He lets her know his old snowfield gear was basically done for, so he asked for this new look himself. People keep saying his design stands out and looks pretty sick. She wants to know if he's also on board with this mission. He admits it, saying there's no way he could turn down a job this cool. Watches, realizing just how different he really is. He wonders why she's rolling solo, and if and Casson are just sitting this mission out. Hayes figures they must bylate on the mission once they saw what it was about. Checks out the group of people hanging around him. He looked around and realized way fewer people showed up than he thought. With how easy the mission sounded and the money on the line, he figured the place would be packed, but there weren't even 10 guys here. Lets him know there's some real risk with this mission. Thinks the job looks pretty basic at first, but points out that the reward's way bigger than normal. She lets him know there's talk going around that the guards who went to the village never came back. So yeah, this mission isn't nearly as easy as it looks. still thinks not enough people showed up. Hayes kind of holds back at first, but then lets him know there's actually another rumor out there that makes sense of all this. She lets him know it's got something to do with Lady Aquas. Hears the name and it catches him off guard. Hayes lets everyone know that Lady Aquas, the Inquisitor who doesn't exactly follow the usual sun god rules, is actually joining this mission. Most mercenaries don't even bother teaming up with her. Haya can't help but worry, thinking Aqua might actually be out to take her down. Lets her know it's not gonna happen and explains that is super chill and respectful. Finds out that actually knows Lady Aqua, which catches him off guard. He admits he knows her too, even calling her friend. He just stands there totally lost for words. The thought of a heretic Inquisitor actually being friends with a barbarian throws him off. He just can't wrap his head around it. Walks up to who just pulled up to the spot. He walks up and says hey, acting like they're cool. Aqua just shuts him down, straight up saying she doesn't remember them ever being friends. Just laughs it off and doesn't make a big deal, acting chill as he hints that they should start hanging out as friends. Aquas just brushes off his suggestion and starts talking about something else. He looks over at who's chilling right next to and wonders if is also riding with a different god. Didn't expect Aqua to know Hayes and it definitely caught him off guard. Wants to know what's doing here since from what she remembers he shouldn't be around. Right now, Lady's followers are just chilling and taking a break. ACWAS figures it's just the top guys who should be doing anything right now. She steps back from her suspicion pretty fast, telling Hayes she's probably got it wrong since she doesn't know every single thing about all those religious groups. Right then, the guard captain pulled up to the meeting spot with his squad right behind him. Spots him right away, grins, and gives a friendly nod, almost like it's no big deal they've run into each other again. Aqua just chills next to, not bothered at all, while Hayes can't help but look over, tense and stressed. The guard captain stands in front of everyone, nodding as he checks that all the guys who signed up are there. Once he's sure no one's missing, he lets them know it's time to roll out. Looks around at everyone, kind of joking to himself about how their squad almost seems like they're about to go on some legit castle raid, like they're in some old-school war game or something. He starts thinking if jumping into action right now is actually the big moment that the old prophecy talked about. She keeps it cool and says she can't really tell since the god isn't around. Nobody really knew when this big thing would actually go down. So far nothing else had happened. They just stopped hearing from the village out of nowhere. Picks up from what she said that even though things are still up in the air, there's a real chance this is actually the risky event everyone's been on edge about. That weird prophecy about some next-level evil dropping onto Earth keeps running through his head. He grinned, clearly hyped, as the thought of going up against the big bad got him seriously curious and ready for whatever was coming next. After moving carefully for a while, the team finally pulls up to the entrance of the lost village. Everything around them is dead quiet and it just feels off. The guard captain wants to know how feels about the place, so she checks things out and gets a little uneasy. She can't pick up on any signs of life. It's almost like the whole village is empty, like everyone just vanished. The captain thinks maybe everyone just bylaid because they got scared of something. He tells his crew to split up and check everywhere, hoping they can find anything that explains why the place is empty. And didn't even pause, they just jumped right in and started moving through the empty village streets, slipping into the quiet alleys without a word. The captain looks at the village and can tell it's tiny, maybe just 100 people living there at most. He can't wrap his head around how everyone could just dip without leaving a single clue behind. It just doesn't add up. He's totally sure they'll dig up something, even if it's barely anything, so he tells everyone to start searching right away. One of the mercenaries checks out this old wooden building and totally doesn't expect what's waiting inside. He shouts to the captain, letting everyone know he's hungry and good to go for food. At first, the captain figures the people here just bylaid fast and ditched their stuff, but then the mercenary points out the food's actually still warm, like someone just made it and dipped. The captain just kind of froze, totally thrown off by what he'd heard. None of it made any sense, and he kept turning it over in his head, trying to figure out how something so random could even go down. Nobody had heard from the village in days. It was like they just vanished. He was still trying to figure things out when another update drop. Turns out, nobody could find any footprints or hints that the villagers had left, or even tried to hide out close by. The captain tells everyone to keep searching, hoping they'll find something, anything. It'll finally help them figure out what's really going on. While everyone kept searching, they started to notice some weird and messed up stuff all over the village. It looks like everything's still running like normal, lights on, stuff in place, but not a single person's around. The mercenaries check everything out and it's obvious people were hanging out here not too long ago, just doing normal stuff. But now there's literally no sign of anyone, like they straight up vanished, no bodies, no vibes, nothing. The captain looks over at Aquas, hoping she can clear things up, but she just shakes her head, totally lost about what's happening. Even she has no clue what's going on right now. He looks over at who just shakes his head, basically saying he didn't spot anything useful and nothing around feels off. The captain's patience snapped as he stared at the whole mysterious mess in front of him. None of it made sense. He was seriously pissed, not even trying to hide how mad this whole situation had him. stays cool and just tells them they should probably talk to someone who actually knows what's going on. The captain doesn't really get what he means at first, so clears it up and says there's actually someone else hanging around this empty village with them. Everyone starts glancing around, looking pretty uneasy. The captain catches sight of this weird woman just standing there. He's sure she wasn't there before. It hits him, and he can't help but wonder how long she's been chilling there, totally quiet, without anyone noticing. The mysterious woman flashes a quick smile, honestly impressed that spotted her even though she thought she'd hidden herself pretty well. Just shrugs it off, saying it makes sense they'd spot someone new showing up out of nowhere in a spot like this. But the woman lets him know most people don't even notice her unless she decides to let them. The woman just rolled her eyes at the group, kind of mocking them. She pointed out in her own way that not even the top guy from the Sun God's crew noticed her sneaking around. She checks out and just figures he probably hasn't unlocked any crazy hidden powers yet. Just straight up tries to get to the bottom of who she really is, but she doesn't even acknowledge it. Instead, she just sees him as some random bonus for whatever she's scheming. The guard captain instantly picks up on how dangerous she is right now. He doesn't waste any time. He yells for everyone to back off and get as far away from her as possible. The captain suddenly notices that even Aquas, the strongest inquisitor in the group, can't sense this woman at all. It's like she's invisible or just not there, and that really throws him off. The captain's mind starts racing, and straight up, he sees only two ways this can end. There's no in between. He started to think maybe this woman wasn't some evil or demon after all. Maybe she's just on another level, so much so that regular people can't even sense her. She flashes a creepy grin that instantly makes everyone tense up. In that moment, she lets them know she's already decided what's going to happen to them. Stood out to her he wasn't like the others. He actually caught her attention. Without hesitating, she made up her mind. She was set on dragging him down to hell with her, locking him in as her slave forever. She suddenly changed, showing everyone her real demon side. Out of nowhere, she launched this huge, wild ball of purple energy that looked like it could wreck anything in its way. She's up in the air right in front of them, just straight up ignoring gravity, and just stood there frozen, completely out of their depth. Whatever was happening in front of them was on a whole new level, and none of them had seen anything like it before. They couldn't do anything except watch. The guard captain totally loses it, and tells everyone to drop what they're doing and get out of there fast. The mercenaries suddenly realize they're stuck inside some see-through magic wall that just popped up. They go all out trying to smash their way out, but nothing's working. The demoness stands in the middle of the village, her voice booming so everyone hears it. She basically lets everyone know she runs things now, and nobody's getting out from under her control. She licked her lips, eyeing them like they were all on the menu now. Everyone suddenly gets it, they're up against an actual, insanely strong demon. Totally freaked out, knows right away this isn't just some regular monster but a named demon, which means it's one of the deadliest out there. She starts praying hard, hoping her god will pull her out of this mess and save her from everything going down. Rests his hand on her head, trying to help her chill out. He stays close, letting her know he's not going anywhere and she's got nothing to worry about. Wants to know what it actually means when a demon has a name, and how that sets her apart from the others. His voice shaky, lets everyone know that most demons people talk about aren't actually that strong. They're just small bits of bad energy and magic, nothing too serious. She explains that real, original demons actually exist out there. Creatures that come out of total darkness pick their own names, and even the weakest demon among them could wreck a whole kingdom and throw everything into chaos. Gets it right away, this demon standing in front of them isn't just some random enemy. He knows it's one of those serious threats you don't mess with. Sees her horns and instantly knows she's not just anyone, she's the demoness from way back, the one people still talk about because she wrecked everything when she showed up centuries ago. Wonders if smashing through the magic barrier would work, but just shakes his head, clearly bummed out. He points out that this whole place basically belongs to the demon now, and the only shot they've got at getting out is to actually beat the thing, which honestly sounds pretty much impossible. Thought the whole thing was kind of cool, but he didn't expect the barrier to start breaking apart the second his hand brushed against it. He just starts laughing out of nowhere, quickly covering up the hole he made so no one catches on. He decides he's down to stick around and see how things play out a bit more. Hay stares at him, totally thrown off by how chill he's acting. He just shoots her a quick hand signal, kind of like telling her to relax, he's got it under control. Mox Aquas, the demoness, just sat back and watched, kind of trolling them about the whole trap she set up, almost like she thought it was hilarious that they even bothered to check it out. She explains that all the signs of life they saw in the village, the stuff that made it look like people were just there, was actually fake, just some next-level demon prank. She was all about messing with people, trying to pull them into whatever scheme she had going on. Aqua couldn't stand her. He was straight up disgusted, thinking the whole thing was just nasty and messed up. Aqua's figures that bringing a named demon into the real world isn't easy. It takes a crazy amount of souls. He's pretty sure that even wiping out a whole village would barely cut it for summoning something that powerful. Pulling off a move like turning a whole area into a demonic zone without anyone catching on, that's just not happening. Aqua couldn't wrap his head around how this demoness just showed up out of nowhere and slipped into their world without anyone from the good side noticing. on the other hand, just shot back with a sarcastic vibe, clearly not planning on spilling her secret anytime soon. Aqua totally loses it and starts yelling at her, calling her out as some kind of twisted villain ruining everything in this sacred place. Just started laughing, throwing shade at Aqua's by calling her the god's loyal dog. He looked at her with that smug energy, acting like her big deal god couldn't get her out of this mess. She leans in, making it clear that what she's about to say is important. She explains that something's not right, huge cracks are showing up in how their world works. Now it's not just humans and gods running things anymore, even if everyone still thinks that's the case. Way back in the day, gods and humans teamed up to throw down against some serious evil. The battles got intense and both sides went all out trying to win. The fight wrapped up with them totally dominating, sending the villain packing, gone from their world and trapped somewhere deep and far away. Stands there owning it, letting everyone know she's the demoness who controls gravity. She's been counting down the days in hell, ready to wipe out the embarrassment of losing last time and planning to spread darkness everywhere. Aqua gets mad and shuts it down, making it clear this world belongs to gods and humans, so that nasty thing needs to bounce and go back to wherever it came from. Aqua gets ready for this big ritual, hoping her god will show up and give her some serious power. Out of nowhere, this huge beam of golden light just surrounds her, and you can literally see her changing, leveling up into some kind of legendary warrior. It's just chilling, thinking to himself how in these stories, villains never actually bother to attack when someone's transforming, pretty much exactly what he figured would happen. Aqua finally shows up, decked out head to toe in golden armor that just glows with power. Watches the change happen, kind of entertained by it. He thinks it's pretty cool and the whole thing just makes him want to see what happens next. She brings out this massive, sharp crystal scythe, looking like she's totally ready to throw down. Watch the demoness act all cocky like she had everything figured out. Not having it, he just locked in and rushed her, moving faster than anyone could have expected, ready to throw down. Both of them go head to head, smashing into each other with serious force. Energy bursts out everywhere, blowing up so hard that the ground underneath starts shaking. And Aquas get blasted backward, sent flying from the impact. Stands tall, not backing down at all. He's all about keeping the fight clean and fair, kind of throwing shade at the divine hunting dogs, like maybe they've never even heard of basic fighting rules. Aqua stared her down, eyes full of real anger, looking like he was about to lose it. He was basically daring her to cut the act and see if she was ready for things to get serious. The fight between and is still going hard. Charges in fast, kicking up dust everywhere, eyes lit up like she's got some next-level power. Out of nowhere, just vanishes instantly, like she was never even there. Aquas barely has time to process anything when the demoness suddenly shows up right behind her. Out of nowhere, she lands a nasty hit from the back, and you can literally hear the air rip as it happens. Barely manages to block the attack just in time, showing off some insane reflexes, but then suddenly grabs her divine shield with a sharp claw and that totally throws off. No one had ever touched her shield like that before, so she's caught off guard and can't believe what just happened. But doesn't waste a second, she goes all in and smashes Aquas with everything she's got. Aquas gets launched straight down, slamming into the ground so hard that she leaves a massive crater where she lands. Keeps going all out, not letting up for a second. She spots where her opponent slips up and just goes after that spot, totally locked in on taking them down. He kept throwing dark punches non-stop, and Aqua could barely keep up. Every hit pushed him back, and he had to step back again and again just to survive. While the fight was raging, Aqua suddenly started shouting lines from her holy book, her voice blasting through the chaos so everyone could hear. He stood there totally confident, letting everyone know that nobody was getting past that bright light. No monster from the shadows could touch him. Right after she finishes talking, a huge blast of holy light drops straight out of the sky and slams into. The hit is intense, making her fall back fast while she screams from the pain. The demoness hangs back, eyeing her opponent. She can't believe he's got that much skill with the holy scriptures, especially for someone so young. She throws out some obvious sarcasm, basically saying the girl turned out to be way more interesting than she thought she'd be. Keeps going and throws out an even stronger verse, not slowing down at all. She asks her lord to wipe out everything bad with his holy fire. She lifts her scepter and it starts glowing bright, lighting up the whole place. Suddenly she blasts forward, moving so fast it's like she just disappeared, way quicker than anyone could react. He lets out another wave of insane divine energy, and suddenly this massive holy fire explodes everywhere. The fight kicks off and suddenly everything speeds up. These two aren't holding back at all. They're throwing punches so fast, nobody can even keep up. Holy and demonic energy started blasting out one after another, causing wild explosions everywhere. The peaceful village gets wrecked, flames tearing through everything until it's just a mess of burned out ruins. The mercenaries and Hayas got caught right in the chaos, yelling for someone to help while dodging chunks of debris crashing down all around them. While the two keep going at it, their fight is so intense it's like the whole ground is about to break apart. Hangs back with his hands shoved in his pockets, just watching the wild fight go down. He's got this big grin, totally into it, like he's catching the best live stream ever. The whole thing's got him hyped, almost like he's watching his favorite show instead of being there in person. Rushes over and grabs his arm, holding on tight. She's got tears in her eyes, hoping he'll do something for Lady Aquas, who's out there fighting for them. Just stands there totally chill and distant, saying he could help if he wanted, but honestly doesn't see a reason to get involved. Just freezes, not even able to respond, completely thrown off by what he said. He says he doesn't want to mess up a fight this good, since it's rare to see people go at it like this. Even though he's down to take on a demon himself, right now he'd rather just chill and watch this wild fight play out. Catches himself acting selfish and instantly gets creeped out by it. He starts to think there's something off about this guy's mindset, like it's not how normal people think. Both sides kept going at it, trading blows while bursts of energy shot all over the place. Knows Aqua's tough, never backs down, just like you'd expect from someone rolling with the gods. Still, is pretty sure she's got the upper hand when it comes to straight-up power and actually throwing down in a fight. She starts to notice this whole showdown isn't going to work out for her. In this world, demons just can't go toe-to-toe with gods for long. As Aqua's pure divine power keeps leveling up, she ends up backing off, realizing she can't really keep up. Can tell this fight isn't ending anytime soon if it keeps going like this, and deep down, she knows things could eventually flip and not go her way. She figures it's time to switch things up and go for a smarter move that'll help her win fast. She suddenly takes off, moving way faster than anyone else, with this sneaky grin that says she knows exactly what she's doing. Out of nowhere, he switches things up and goes straight for the mercenaries, who just stand there frozen, totally unprepared and watching everything go down. Aqua sees what's about to happen and it catches her off guard. She gets it right away, the demoness is switching targets. Without wasting a second, Aqua jumps in, blocking the attack with her own body and shield. Kept blasting dark energy at Aqua, not letting up for a second. He was really pushing Aqua's shield, trying to break it down and wear her out. The mercenaries look straight up terrified, each one thinking about what could go down if that shield didn't hold up. Aquas just loses it after getting like that. He looks at with pure disgust, thinking he's got no honor at all. In Aqua's eyes, move was straight up dirty. Lets out a sarcastic laugh, clearly not taking anything seriously and showing he's got zero respect for what's going on. Aqua wondered if anyone actually thought a demon like her would play fair or stick to any knightly rules. Aqua's totally fired up, starts saying this powerful line from her most important scriptures, the kind of line she only pulls out when things get real. He let everyone know that this new golden light had just shown up, and it was basically the top-tier holy power, nothing else even came close. Suddenly, this insane golden light blasts out from her, lighting up everything around. She just drops a dome-shaped shield made of pure light, turning the whole spot into this safe zone, then waves for everyone to get inside fast. The mercenaries who made it out alive sprint into the safety zone, relieved that Aquas had their backs and pulled them out right before things got ugly. Just let out this twisted laugh, almost mocking the idea of using these super rare holy scriptures just to save a bunch of weak humans. He seemed like he couldn't believe anyone would actually waste something so valuable on people like that. Glares at her, clearly annoyed, and tells her to keep quiet. The demoness just smiled, kind of impressed, thinking this was exactly how an angry holy warrior should act. Both of them charged straight at each other, ready to keep the fight going. Aqua steps up and shuts down's wild attack, not letting anything get through. She doesn't expect it when she watches her pull off a smooth dodge and launch herself right over her head, flipping through the air like it's nothing. Out of nowhere, she steps right up to her and leans in close, quietly saying that death is just death, and nobody's going to care about giving everything up for these losers. She lets her know straight up that if she keeps acting this way, she's gonna mess up and embarrass the name of her god in front of everyone. She gets real clever and gives her an easy option that's honestly hard to turn down. She needed to get rid of the holy power guarding the mercenaries, so she could finally go all out and defend herself for real. If she pulls off a win after that, everyone's gonna see her and her god as straight-up legends. Just threw out some heavy sarcasm, wondering if the Aquas would actually risk it all just to save a few regular humans. Spots what's really going on. She knows these are just lame mind games. None of what was said gets to her at all. It's all noise to her, nothing worth stressing over. Realizes her plan didn't work and just grins, throwing out a cold smile. She basically tells her to go ahead and die for her cause if that's what she really wants. She goes all out, pushing her dark energy to the limit, and dropping a heavy, focused blast that hits way harder than before. Aqua's giving it everything she's got, trying to hold back this insane attack with her holy light, but it's starting to lose power and fade out. Out of nowhere, just pops up right in front of her, moving so fast it's almost unreal, like she's not even human. He blasts out a surge of dark energy right up close, and Aqua almost dodges, but it still sends her flying back. She catches herself and gets steady again, but anyone watching can see she's rattled. Her face shows she's not cool with what just happened. Kept going at full speed, not letting her opponent catch a break for even a second. Purple rings blasted out, closing in on Aqua from every direction and locking her down tight, almost like a bunch of snakes wrapping around her. Aqua's ends up stuck in total darkness, can't see a thing around her. The demoness came at her from above, moving fast and sharp, kind of like a hawk zeroing in on its target. Has had enough of listening to the gods' holy scriptures. She just snaps and goes all out, throwing everything she's got into a massive attack. Takes a brutal hit and ends up spitting blood, getting slammed hard onto the ground. Right when things got sketchy, she snatched up her shield and stopped a stab that was about to take her out. Still, he kept going. Keeps going at her, not letting up, even though she's already down and can't do anything about it. The demoness starts building up a ton of dark energy in her hand, shaping it into this black orb. He launches it straight at her and totally crushes Aqua with the hit. The blast goes off hard, breaking straight through the golden shield that was keeping the mercenaries safe. One of the mercenaries totally loses it. He knows they're done for now, that nobody's got their backs. Flashes a wicked grin, letting everyone know she's not done yet. She's planning to finish them off after her main meal like they're just dessert. She chooses to go for the Aquas first, curious about what the legendary god dog might actually taste like. As her mouth opens, those sharp, beastly fangs look seriously intimidating. Right when was ready to attack, came out of nowhere and grabbed her jaw, stopping her just before she could snap at Aqua. He just looks at her totally chill and tells her to cut it out, like he's done with all the games. Aqua's and just freeze up when he shows up out of nowhere. Neither of them saw it coming, and it honestly leaves them both speechless. She's trying to figure out when he even showed up and how he pulled it off. She couldn't sense him around, almost like he just popped up out of thin air. Just goes for it and lands a straight-up solid punch right to his face, no hesitation at all. The blast launched her straight across the village, tearing through buildings and leaving a trail of destruction behind. He turns to, who's still frozen on the ground, and checks if she's alright. Aqua stares at him, totally stunned, and right then it hits him. This is the same guy who took down Cain like it was nothing. Stands up out of the wreckage, her eyes locked in and blazing with rage. She starts yelling at, calling him a stuck-up brute, and basically wants to know why he just barged in and messed up her meal. Brushes off his clothes and lets everyone know that is his friend, so there's no way he's letting her die. Gets more pissed after his cold comeback. She lets him know she was actually planning to spare him and mess with him as her new toy, but only after she finished off everyone else. He just grins, totally chill, and makes it clear he's not here to play by anyone else's rules. You could tell he wasn't about to let anyone mess with him. She just looks at him and throws out a wicked grin, like she already knows she's got the upper hand. He tells himself this is it, he's done for right here. She pulls out her weapon and suddenly there's this huge demonic scythe in her hands. Aqua struggles to stand, barely holding himself up. He looks over, basically telling the other guy to get out of there fast. He lets her know he's got the strength to back himself up, even though he looks pretty average. But she's not convinced. She's worried and points out that just being strong isn't enough to take down a demon. She pushes herself to stand up, not letting her rough shape slow her down, determined to prove she's still got the strength to fight. Aquas lets everyone know that getting rid of demons and cleaning them up for good is something only divine power can handle. She explains that this rule has been around forever, like since the beginning of everything. Now that they're stuck in the demon's territory, there's zero chance something magical is gonna bail them out. Pauses for a second, really thinking about what she just said. He spots how rough she looks, sees the injuries, and can tell she's in no shape to throw hands right now. Doesn't back down at all. She knows she's got a job to do serving her god, and there's no way she's running from a fight. For her, it's all about stepping up and taking on whatever evil comes at her, even if it means pushing herself to the limit. Really respects how she never gives up and always sticks to what she believes in. He tells her to sit this one out and let him handle it, wanting her to take a break. She just stands there, kind of thrown off by what's happening. He flashes a big grin, looking hyped, and lets her know he's always wanted to take on a demon himself just to see what he's really made of. Basically lets him know he has no clue what's really going on and starts roasting him, acting like there's no way he could ever lay a finger on her with how weak he is. Calls her out, basically telling her to prove if she's for real or just talking. The demoness casually runs her tongue over her claws, clearly enjoying herself. She's already thinking about how much she wants to see his face change when she goes after him, ready to mess him up just to watch his eyes react. She takes off, going all in with everything she's got, moving crazy fast and hitting hard right from the start. Dark energy started swirling all around her, spinning into a huge vortex that pulled everything in. She shoots out of the vortex, moving insanely fast straight at. Aqua sees it all go down, and her heart pretty much drops. She's actually scared for what might happen to him. Stays totally chill, not even flinching, and just lands a clean, hard punch right to her face while she's going in. The hit sent her flying, her head just destroyed from the impact. Aqua's just stood there, frozen, not believing what she had just seen. Couldn't move, just standing there with her eyes wide, trying to process what she'd just seen. Had taken down a tough demoness with one punch, crushing her head like it was nothing. She started questioning if a human could even pull off something this unreal, her mind racing and her voice barely above a whisper because she was honestly scared. While all the chaos was going down, started pulling himself back together right in the middle of everything, his body rebuilding out of this wild, swirling dark energy. just watched it happen, barely reacting except for a cold grin. She seemed totally unfazed, like it was no big deal that her head could just regrow after getting smashed. She stared him down, her eyes lit up with straight-up hatred and surprise. Her voice came out rough as she tried to figure out who he really was, since there's no way a regular human could pull off what he just did. He just said he was a regular barbarian, nothing special. Wasn't having it at all. She got mad fast, thinking he was trying to play her or act like she was dumb. She got totally lost for a second. Her demon instincts just couldn't pick up anything, no magic vibes, no weird energy, nothing coming off at all. She was sure now he wasn't using aura magic or anything special to boost himself. After seeing how wild that result was, she knew she had to see for herself if this insane strength was actually real. She flashed an evil grin and launched herself at moving crazy fast. She went all in, yelling for him to just end it right there. He acted all cocky, saying it was kind of embarrassing to fight someone so weak, but he knew he had to put an end to this mess anyway. Out of nowhere, her smile just stopped, like she'd seen something wild. Grabbed her wrist so fast and smooth, it was like he was barely even trying, almost like he was dealing with a kid throwing a tantrum. She barely had time to realize what was going on before he stepped in and hit her with a punch straight to the chest. The impact was wild, like getting hit by a cannonball. She got knocked back hard, flying through the air, blood coming up as she landed. For the first time, she actually felt pain cut through her demon body. She got launched through the air so fast, it was like she was nothing, just tossed around by something way bigger than her. She crashed down hard, hitting the ground so tough that the impact left a dent in it. He stood there, hands shaking, trying to process how just one punch could do that much damage. Noticed she was starting to heal up again, just taking it in stride. Meanwhile, the demoness suddenly caught on to something wild. His punch didn't have any magic or aura boost behind it. It was just straight up raw strength, nothing else. Looked at her, really curious about how she healed up so fast and so well. He tried to figure out what was actually going on behind it, like what made her able to recover like that. He didn't even pause to see what would happen next. He just kept going, slamming his foot down so hard that the ground literally shook. The rocks nearby split apart like he was too strong for his own good. He darted at her so fast, nobody even saw it coming. She was still trying to get her head back together, but he was already on her before she had a chance to react. He snatched it up with both hands and slammed it down hard, not holding back at all. He came in strong with a sidekick, blasting her across the place again. Her body was all busted up, just scraps lying everywhere on the ground. Then this dark energy started pulling everything back together, fixing her up bit by bit, like she was getting patched up for another round. Stood there with a small grin, his eyes lit up, totally locked in on what was happening. He noticed that whenever her head got wrecked, it just popped back like nothing happened. He figured that had to be some demon-level skill. Then he started thinking if her head was actually the core that kept her going. Thought the whole thing was just ridiculous and honestly kind of embarrassing. As she stood up trying to keep her cool, she couldn't help but wonder if he actually believed he could just beat her by using pure strength. She threw in some heavy sarcasm, basically wondering if she even had to bother fighting back against his brute strength. Stared at her, totally lost on what she was trying to do. Her voice switched up real quick, sounding straight up dangerous as she told him to pay attention. She let him know again with serious attitude that she was the demoness of gravity. Then she basically dared him to keep relying on just brute strength to see what would happen next. Kept his cool and just dropped a few words that totally crushed her confidence. To him, she just didn't stand out, and that hit her pride way harder than she expected. She just lost it and let out a scream so loud it felt like the whole room was shaking. It was clear she was about to go all out with her real power. Rushdie totally fired up and embarrassed, her eyes basically throwing daggers. When she walked up, the air in front of her started warping, like reality itself was glitching. Dark energy pulled together, shaping into this huge, brutal pitch black, looking heavy enough to crush anything in its way. The demoness came in hard, swinging her massive weapon and smashing with a hit strong enough to break straight through a giant rock. He just stopped the brutal hit with his hands like it was nothing, then straight up smashed the heavy gravity hammer apart with one clean punch. He threw another fast punch right at her face, knocking back again. Her head broke apart for the third time, the hit landing hard. Got back on her feet while her body healed up fast, and she just couldn't wrap her head around what was happening. She zoned out for a second, thinking about what her gravity powers could actually do. As the demoness of gravity, she realized she could pack the weight of a whole castle wall into just one swing of her hammer. No one could believe it. A regular barbarian, not even tapped into any magic or special powers, just straight up stopped the attack with his bare hands and even broke her weapon like it was nothing. She just lost it and yelled as loud as she could, like there was no way any of this could actually be real. Totally losing it, pulled together a ton of dark energy in her hands. She fired off a massive blast straight at the barbarian, all in, dead set on making sure he was finished for good. Didn't back down, he went straight at the attack, throwing a punch that cut right through the beam. The punch's energy crashed into the demoness's dark power, setting off this huge blast of blinding white light. was just way too strong. His power blew right through the energy and set off a massive explosion. Aqua just stood there, frozen, not even sure if her eyes were playing tricks on her or if this was actually happening. Thought back to what she'd seen in those old books, wasn't just any demoness. She was on another level, the kind who had soloed a whole kingdom way back all by herself. She couldn't believe it, a demoness this powerful was right in front of her. He was getting absolutely wrecked, and the wildest part was that it was all just from bare hands. Touched down softly on, noticing his body was already starting to heal itself again. He realized she was basically impossible to take out for good. No matter how hard anyone tried, brute strength just wasn't gonna cut it. When the demoness picked up on what he was thinking, she gave this sly, evil grin, like she was already a step ahead. Out of nowhere, got hit with this heavy pressure from standing over her, way stronger than anything she'd ever dealt with before. She looked at him, her voice shaky, really wanting to know who he actually was. But he just stayed chill, saying he was nothing special, just a regular barbarian. Just couldn't buy into this wild story, but even though it freaked her out, she couldn't help but find the whole thing weirdly thrilling. She let him know she had one more thing to try. Then, out of nowhere, her whole body turned into this shadowy liquid and slipped right out from under his foot. Kept his eyes on what was happening, clearly interested, while Aqua started to get nervous, her heart beating faster. Up in the sky, all that energy started coming together and turned into this huge black orb. It was so intense that the rocks around it started breaking apart and getting sucked in, almost like the gravity just cranked up to max. From up above, stared down at the barbarian. She pretty much let him know she was about to go all out and break him apart. She locked in, pulling together every bit of strength she had left, getting ready to go all out with her last, most powerful move. Suddenly got it, this was what the demonesses were really capable of, and things had just gotten seriously bad. Saw right away that just trying to muscle through wouldn't cut it. He needed something way beyond what he had, like straight-up divine help. Looking all confident, basically claimed the win and started her last spell, calling for the thorns to drop and take out everything in their way. Right away, sharp dark thorns started falling from above, coming down hard like a non-stop storm of black rain. Froze for a second, then suddenly started swinging his arms super fast. His moves were insane. He basically built a wall of punches around himself. Every thorn that came near just got destroyed and nothing could break through to touch him. Just stood there totally stunned, trying to figure out what kind of wild beast this dude really was. She barely had time to process what just happened before he shot off his spot and rocketed straight at her through the air, moving way faster than she ever thought possible. Dude was basically breaking the sound barrier. Right then, jumped in. She didn't hold back, she spoke up, her voice steady and loud, quoting another verse from her holy books. She called out that the powerful light was here to wipe out anything evil. She put everything she had left into her prayer, and suddenly this bright, unreal energy started swirling in the air. It shaped itself into a huge golden axe, shining like something straight out of a legend. The axe dropped right into his hand, and for a second he just stared at it, totally stunned, thinking maybe the god just handed it to him personally. Completely out of breath, yelled at him. She'd pushed herself to the limit, using up every last bit of her power just for him. Now she wanted him to end the right away, no second thoughts. Grabbed his new axe, which was buzzing with some wild energy. As soon as he held it, he could tell there was something different about it, almost like it was made just for him. Without wasting any time, he faced the demoness, letting her know things were about to get serious. He brought the axe down hard, and its holy power just tore right through her. Right then, realized it was game over for her. The divine light started tearing through her, burning her up from the inside out. She couldn't hold back the screams. This pain was next level, and it had her completely done. She dropped to the floor, totally wiped out, not moving at all. Walked over, chill as ever, acting like the whole fight was just some light entertainment to him. Barely hanging on, thought it sucked to get sent back to hell in such an embarrassing way. Still, she didn't see it as a total L. At least now she knew for sure that someone like was actually out there. She wanted to know his last name, so he just said. As soon as Aqua's heard it, she totally freaked out and started screaming. She was seriously scared. Just lost it and started laughing in this wild, desperate way. Using up her last bit of energy, she opened up this unreal channel that sent out a powerful message, echoing through every corner of hell and reaching everyone stuck in those dark places. He demanded everyone remember the name the Barbarian, making sure it stuck in their heads for good. Aquas couldn't hold it together and just yelled out, totally desperate. After she died, the demoness told her crew to eat up all her memories and figure out everything there was to know about. Let out her last laugh, making it clear that the Barbarian was theirs now. Suddenly, a bunch of weird, hidden beings started pushing their way into his mind, taking over. Just stopped and stared, not really sure what was going on. Inside his mind, these massive, demonic creatures showed up looking like huge space worms, facing off against his inner self. He barely had to think about it, his mind just wiped them out like they were barely there. Glanced at his own body, totally unbothered, and moved on like nothing even happened. He looked down at the demoness, barely hanging on, and wanted to know what she did to him. He could tell something weird had hit him, even if just for a second. Was honestly frozen, totally thrown off by the fact that this evil darkness, the kind that should wreck him inside and out, wasn't doing anything to him. Didn't waste a second, he just stomped out whatever was left of the demoness, making sure she was gone for good. Meanwhile, and just lost it, screaming because they couldn't believe what just happened. Once the purple mist faded away after the demoness was gone, stretched out, looking pretty pleased, he glanced over at Aquas, basically checking if they were finally done with the mission. Barkin was a chill spot in the kingdom of. News blew up everywhere about the village nobody could reach anymore. People started talking online, and everyone realized something bad had gone down there. After the attack on the village, newspapers blew up with sketches and wild guesses about this demoness. Everyone was pointing at her for what went down. The ruler of the territory slouched at his desk, looking worn out and sad. He just couldn't wrap his head around how something this bad could hit his small place, especially after all the work he'd put in to keep it safe. After that tough fight with things weren't chill for long. Now there's a new problem, some demon with a name that's been popping up in old history books. Even with everything falling apart, at least the Sun God's Inquisitor pulled through and pushed the demoness back for a bit. That quick break gave him just enough time to chill, catch his breath, and figure out his next move. The camera moves over too. He knows the whole place is buzzing, everyone's on edge and waiting to see what's going to happen next after everything just went down. He looks over at who's out cold and still healing up from some serious injuries. Out of nowhere, she starts moving a little, and he's caught off guard when she actually tries to say something, her voice barely there. Sits up slowly, steady and focused, like she's got somewhere important to be. Watches her, obviously worried, and wonders out loud if she should chill for a bit longer before heading out, just to make sure she's good to go. Doesn't back down and lets him know she can't wait around anymore. She's got to get word to the Holy Land about everything that just went down here, and she needs to move fast. Gets where she's coming from and totally respects how she made up her mind. Looks at him and really means it when she thanks him for having her back. She knows if he hadn't stepped in, she would have been totally at the mercy of that demoness, probably stuck as her toy with no way out. Just shook his head and brushed off the thanks, acting like it was no big deal. To him, he'd only helped out because that's what friends do, nothing more, nothing less. He looks at her kind of curious and wonders if they're actually friends now. Gets caught off guard, she never even thought about something like that. In her mind, it's wild to think a northern barbarian and someone loyal to the god could ever be friends. She lets him know again who she really is, the Inquisitor of the Sun God. Then she looks at him, dead serious, wanting to know if he still wants to be friends, even though there's this huge gap between them. Just throws out the question, wondering if there's any legit reason against it. Aquas thinks it over for a sec but can't come up with anything solid, so decides it's not a big deal. Looks like their friendship's actually on the table. Aquas gives a quick nod, a small grin showing he's on board. Brings up something that's been on his mind. He wants to know if it's actually true that you shouldn't tell a demon your real name. Nods and says yeah, that's legit. She explains it's all about this thing called marking, and that's why you have to be careful. She lets him know that demons use names to secretly leave a mark on someone's soul, something you can't see but definitely sticks. The mark basically turns the person into an easy target, drawing in all the bad stuff out there. Once it's on you, it's like every evil thing knows where to find you, and they never really let up. Back in the day, she explains, people with this mark had to go through some wild, complicated rituals just to get rid of it. If they didn't, evil forces would hunt them down and finish them off, no mercy. Looked at her clearly worried, wondering if his run-in with the demoness meant he'd gotten marked too. Aquas steps up right away, letting him know he got lucky and didn't get marked. She lets him know that now the demons in hell probably know his name. She lets him know he shouldn't stress about it since they can't really find him without that mark. As long as he doesn't run into them again, he's basically in the clear. Can't help but notice that even though he's strong, just using brute force wasn't enough to take down the demoness. Aquas breaks it down, saying demons are built different, nothing else out there is like them. She starts sharing an old story, saying that way back, the great gods were the ones who made humans and brought them to life. Strange creatures from somewhere else started getting way too interested in what humans were doing, and it definitely wasn't for anything good. Creatures from another dimension straight up invaded their world, showing zero mercy and wiping out people in the most brutal ways possible. Things got so out of hand that even the gods had to step in, backing up humanity and calling those monsters demons. After a wild showdown, the gods kicked the demons out and locked the gate tight behind them. Kept breaking it down, talking about how the gods came through and saved everyone from getting wiped out. After that, people started building churches and temples to show respect. Life got chill, and with the gods actually helping out, humans started leveling up fast. Civilization just kept moving forward. Nobody really knew why, but after a while demons started creeping back into the human world, taking things slow and not trying to get noticed. Demons couldn't be taken down by normal stuff since they were all about that spiritual energy. So the gods picked out their most loyal followers, handed them some holy power, and sent them out to deal with the problem. Realizes from what she said that demons don't go down from just getting hit, since they're from a whole different dimension. Aquas backs him up, explaining that these things weren't even supposed to exist in this world in the first place. notices how these strong beings keep showing up all the time, and he's honestly worried. He knows if this keeps happening, it's going to be a huge problem for everyone. Aquas lets him know that top-tier named demons don't just show up in their world out of nowhere. She lets him know that lately dungeons have been popping up in weird patterns not like before. Something's off, and it looks like the sealed demon world is starting to mess with their world. More and more evil creatures are showing up, creeping in little by little. She points out that all this weird stuff started exactly a year back. Hearing that, instantly remembers. It lines up exactly with when he took on his last mission out in the huge snowfield. When their conversation finally wrapped up, thanked one more time for all he'd done. She let him know she had to head out now, but told him he should stop by her religious order sometime. She'd make sure he felt right at home. Grins, totally down for it. Later on, while she's riding in her carriage and the trip's just getting started, Aquas knows she's still not back to full strength, but she decides she can't just sit around and wait. She has to let the great Saintess know what went down, no matter how rough she feels. She starts thinking about, kind of thrown off by how the sun god never dropped any hint or prophecy about this wild and powerful barbarian. Somewhere else, Kane drags himself down this super fancy hallway. He's totally wiped out after spending way too long stuck in a meeting with the Emperor. Out of nowhere, this guy with long black hair steps out from the darkness. He looks at Kane and points out that things really aren't going his way right now. Kane spots the new guy right away and knows it's the top boss from the Magic Tower, the spot where all the strongest wizards and magic users hang out. Kane shows up at the palace, and the head of the Magic Tower wants to know what he's doing there. Kane lets him know he's just dropping by to give a full update about how his last mission went. The Tower Master catches on real quick and figures out it was a scouting mission to the demon world, right into the Forest of Silence. Kane gets asked what he thought of the place, and his face just turns serious. He says it was straight up terrifying, like nothing made sense there, and all the normal rules just went out the window. Kane points out that the forest was totally silent. No matter what, there wasn't a single sound. Even his magic skills for sensing stuff didn't work right. When he tried to yell, nothing came out, not even a whisper. He remembers just how messed up it was watching his guys vanish, one after another, in that unreal silence. That place honestly creeped him out to his core. Kane can't help thinking about why the Emperor keeps pushing so hard to take over this wild demon world, even though it's clearly risky. The Tower Master just stares, totally unfazed, and says he actually finds the demon world pretty wild. He admits he's legit curious about what goes on there and wants to know the secrets for himself. Kane really just wants to stay out of all this drama. He'd rather keep his distance and not get pulled into anything messy. Out of nowhere, the Tower Master lifts his hand, and this wild magic circle lights up under them. Next thing they know, they're yanked through space and end up standing in this massive area surrounded by stars everywhere. Kane didn't see this coming at all and just wanted to know why it happened so fast. Kane just stood there totally frozen when the Tower Master dropped a hint with that weird, knowing smile. Apparently, he'd run into someone really important during his mission. Kane didn't know what to think, it just caught him completely off guard. He suddenly gets really mad when he figures out the Tower Master slapped a Watcher's Eye spell on him just to keep tabs on everything he's doing. The Tower Master admits he really did it last time they met, saying it's one of the few things he actually enjoys. Kane can't help but mutter some choice words under his breath. Kane chills out and kind of shrugs it off, thinking the guy's already seen it all anyway, so he wonders what else the dude could possibly want from him. The Master of the Magic Tower wanted to know what Kane thought about the Barbarian from the White Snowfield. He'd always heard stories about this guy, thinking he was just some legend people talked about online or in old stories. But now he was actually real, and it kind of threw him off. The points out that this barbarian could take out a pro like Kane and absolutely wreck alike without breaking a sweat. Seeing how he showed up out of nowhere from the edge of the White Snowfield, it's pretty clear he's the real deal. Kane didn't see it coming at all when he found out was the one who took down. Word around the Magic Tower was moving fast. People were already talking about the legendary sorcerer who once had the whole continent on edge. Even though nothing official was out yet, everyone inside the tower seemed to know he'd tried to come back to life and totally failed. The Tower Master mentioned he had visited the lair himself to show respect, kind of down about losing one of the only friends he had from the family. Kane didn't expect someone as powerful as the Tower Master to ever get sad. Turns out, living for ages makes you realize how much you need friends around. The Master just tossed in that they didn't find anything good in this place after he got taken out. Kane starts wondering about this, since he figured all the artifacts were already found when got taken down. The Master points out that the real treasure, the one that matters most, still hasn't been found yet. The Tower Master looks at Kane, wanting to know if Kane really believes the barbarian took down Solo. Kane stays real with him, saying yeah, it actually makes sense, especially since he's talking about that one barbarian he ran into before. The Tower Master catches on that Kane still hasn't told the Emperor about being around. Kane's mind keeps spinning, trying to figure out the point of it all. The Emperor's already tossing major people into the demon world like they don't matter at all. If the Emperor ever found out about the barbarians, things would get ugly fast, no way they'd avoid a fight. Kane sees what's coming, a total disaster brewing between this wild barbarian who just does whatever he wants and an emperor who's all about controlling everything. He knows their clash is going to pull the whole kingdom down with them. The Tower Master hears what Kane says and actually finds it pretty interesting. He wonders if Kane really thinks this barbarian could take on the whole empire solo. Kane just kind of shrugs, not really sure how it would go down. He got that same vibe he had when he first ran into the Tower Master, like he was standing in front of someone on a whole different level, someone who just had that unreal kind of power. The Tower Master starts thinking about whether could actually be a legendary hero, but honestly, he doesn't think he's ready to say for sure just yet. After hearing Kane talk, the Tower Master could tell right away that wasn't just some random guy, he was important. Kane was totally on the same page about that. Over in the packed streets of Barbarian territory, was making his way through the market when the woman ahead of him suddenly tripped, looking like she was about to hit the floor. Moves fast and grabs her right before she hits the ground, stopping her fall just in time. He tells her to watch where she's going next time and checks to see if she's alright. He's used to people dipping as soon as they spot him, usually not even giving him a second glance. But this time the woman surprises him. She actually thanks him, acts super polite, and gives him a respectful bow before heading off like it's no big deal. Just stands there, totally thrown off by how chill she is about everything. He checks out his surroundings, picking up on this weird vibe in the air. People walk past him, a few giving him quick looks, but nobody's dodging him or acting scared like they normally would. He's straight up confused, trying to figure out why everyone's acting so different all of a sudden. She finally quit dodging him. The governor of Barbarian had dropped by his office, checking if he was doing all right. He'd heard the rumors about nearly getting targeted by the she-devil and wanted to see for himself if the guy was back on his feet. Says there's nothing to worry about, but honestly he has no clue what a mark even is. Even though the governor knows how strong he is, he can tell stuff around him isn't the same anymore. He wonders if the guy's talking about the people and gets a nod, yeah, it's the locals. The guy breaks it down, saying the switch-up probably started 'cause of all the rumors going around. The governor keeps talking, pointing out how the guards and mercenaries who made it through the chaos couldn't stop talking about it. After it went down, the whole squad pretty much dropped, except for one guy who stayed up. When the survivors woke up, they saw his axe glowing like it was charged with some next-level power. After that happened, everyone who was there started thinking had given him some of her power. Word spread fast, and people began calling him the guy who took on the demon with by his side. The governor says sorry to him and explains that he tried to fix things, but the rumors were already everywhere. Just shrugs it off, not really bothered by any of it. He starts to get why nobody seems scared of him. The governor nods, thinking they probably see him as the enemy of the devil. He thinks about the new title he's got, and it hits him. This is what people will know him for now. Back at the mercenary guild, the receptionist let him know he got promoted. She said congrats, making it official. He just leveled up his rank. He finds out he's suddenly ranked C, skipping right past 3 levels. That news catches him off guard, but the receptionist lets him know he actually pulled off something big enough to deserve it. The receptionist lets him know they'll get him a new mercenary tag, but since it's getting made just for him, he'll have to wait a bit. She lays it out, once someone hits C rank, they're officially recognized by the guild as a real mercenary. After that, everyone's gotta show him some respect and handle things by the book. Now that he's ranked C, she lets him know he can get into way more places. Most towns, capitals, even churches aren't off limits anymore. The receptionist leaves out the imperial capital, and he thinks the empire's rules are seriously strict. She makes it clear if you're not on the nobility's radar, there's no shot you're getting into the empire. She drops her voice, mentioning how nobody actually knows what's up inside the imperial capital, just that people keep hearing all these wild rumors. After she cleared her throat, the capital started to feel even more mysterious than the demon world. She lets him know he's basically cleared to handle pretty much any job now, even the tough A-rank dungeons, as long as he rolls in with a squad. He looks pretty hyped about all the new stuff he can try out, and all the different jobs waiting for him. Somewhere else, his crew of mercenaries sat down to eat with. One of the mercenaries finally relaxed, sipping his drink now that everything was done. He let the others know the demon got taken down because Inquisitor handled it, and she already checked things out so they didn't have to worry. The other mercenary couldn't help but look at like she was on another level after she took down that demon. He was seriously impressed by what she pulled off. Turns out never blacked out that day. Because she stayed awake, she got to see just how strong he really was and watched him totally dominate a named demon. She figures out that just showed up, grabbed some of the food that was already made, and ended up getting all the credit for what he did. After getting the new promotion, the mercenary wants to know what he's planning to do next. He says nothing's gonna be different, and he's just gonna keep grinding as a C-rank mercenary. The mercenary can't help but respect how chill is about everything, especially after taking down a demon like it was just another day. Meanwhile, just stays, acting like it was no big deal at all. She thinks to herself that nobody should let this guy trick them, because he's not even acting like a real person. He wants to know what they've got lined up for the future. The mercenaries are straight up F rank and honestly don't have a lot going on right now. The mercenary with his hair tied back honestly just wanted to coast through life, leeching off others until the end. Now that he's seen him, he's actually down to give life his all. Next, he wants to know what's got lined up. She says she's just doing what lady wants, nothing new. He lets her know mentioned all of servants are off duty right now. Only the top ranks are still around, and when she finds that out, it totally catches her off guard. She tries to dodge the question, saying must have it wrong and that she's just a regular priestess. He listens and says he'll trust what she says. She starts freaking out inside, thinking maybe he's already onto her and just messing around. Everyone just thought he was scary. It was late and the mercenary guild was pretty much empty. Rosa, the receptionist, was getting her stuff together, ready to head out and finally go home. Out of nowhere, the door swings open. A guy in a hooded robe walks in out of nowhere. He says he needs something, and she's already annoyed because now she's stuck working late again. She looks at him, eyes kinda blank, trying to figure out what kind of favor he's talking about. The man says he needs help getting himself and a young girl somewhere safe. She grabs her pen, starts jotting stuff down, and wants to know where he's headed. He explains to her that they're right in the middle of its main city. She didn't see this coming. She started thinking about why he'd want someone to go with him all the way from this random spot out to his capital. She picks up on the client acting kind of sketchy. The guy's rocking a robe like he's trying to keep his face hidden, and even though his clothes look pretty beat up, he still talks to her in this super respectful way. She decides to give it a shot and tells him to show some ID. He pauses for a second, just thinking things through. He sets a metal card down on the table. She spots the card and knows exactly what it is. Getting a mercenary guild token wasn't something you could just pick up anywhere. She lets him know his ID checks out, then gets straight to grabbing the commission fee before heading off. The guy pulls out just one coin and lets everyone know he's covering the bill with it. She spots that the coin's real gold, but lets him know it's really just enough to cover one person. He freezes for a second, totally thrown off, and just blurts out like, wait, just one person. He stands there, not really sure what's going on. She lets him know there's gonna be a mercenary tagging along for the whole trip, since the kingdom of his way out there and things could get sketchy fast. She tells him that getting to the kingdom of isn't some quick trip, it could take almost a whole month. So honestly, it makes sense that the price is up there. He's desperate, basically asking if there's any way to fix this, since he can't do it alone and really needs at least one other person. She says it could work, but the mercenaries they'd get wouldn't be top tier, more like the ones still trying to level up. She lets him know that if he wants guards he can actually count on, he needs to go for at least E-rank mercenaries. The guy suddenly switches up and wants her to send over someone who actually knows what they're doing, but she stands her ground, saying the deal only covers one person, no upgrades or anything. She's trying to figure out why he's acting like he needs this so bad. She says it straight, getting someone to take a guard job way out in the sticks is almost impossible. Still, she's down to give it a shot. He lets out a tired breath, kind of giving up, and just leaves it all for her to handle. Once he's gone, she takes a good look at the gold coin. It's pretty small, but no doubt it's real gold. She also spots that someone else worked on it. The edges are all filed down like someone tried to hide something. She catches on that the whole thing was just to keep the coin undercover, and right away, she knows this is about to cause some problems. That night, the guy heads out for a walk. Aaron walks up and knocks on the door of some house. Inside, a young girl named wants to know who's there. Aaron steps up and says it's him, calling himself her loyal servant. She lets him come inside. She looks over at him, clearly on edge about how his task turned out. He lets her know the guild's taking the request for the time being. She chills out a bit and wants to know how many people are in on this. He quietly lets her know there's just one left. He says sorry, mentioning they didn't really have enough money. They both start getting annoyed. He keeps thinking he messed up for falling for the trick, but she tries to chill him out and lets him know he's not the one to blame. He totally breaks down, crying loud enough that the whole building can hear. One of the neighbors finally yells at him to keep it down. She wants to know how long this is gonna take, but he really has no clue. With them still searching for someone they can actually trust, he can't give her any solid answer. She realizes they're going to have to wait it out, but she's cool with it and appreciates what he did. He's just sitting there looking down, and anyone could tell he's not having a good day. She stands there looking stressed. He's super embarrassed right now, almost wishing he could disappear. Deep down, he's thinking about how tough it is to actually meet someone, and the whole thing just kind of stresses him out. He starts beating himself up for messing things up, and she points out that they're almost out of food. He just shrugs and says maybe they should go without eating for a bit. She tells him it isn't on him, even when he brings up telling the region's governor about what happened. She shuts the idea down right away. She's convinced they can't really trust anyone, and even thinking about bringing in a bodyguard feels way too risky. She brings up why they had to leave their kingdom behind and run for it, and how back then they couldn't even tell who was on their side. She mentions that even though it's been ages since they got out, they still haven't heard anything from back home. He tells her he's sorry and admits he's lost his nerve lately. She wants to know if the kingdom of is actually safe or if things are about to go sideways. He lets her know they'll be safe here, saying the king have promised to keep them protected ever since the princess was born. They might even have their backs if they want payback. He knows has to make it out, no questions asked. She's the princess, and if something happens to her now, the whole kingdom's basically done for. She's on edge, not sure if trusting a single merc is a smart move. He lets her know it's all good. That's why they paid in gold, so the guild would handle everything and pick someone they can actually trust. He's not stressed about it at all. She starts thinking about who might be assigned to guard her, hoping it's someone cool. Maybe a mercenary who looks like he just walked out of a fantasy game, all-night vibes and everything. Somewhere else he's just sitting around, bored out of his mind, thinking about what his old crew might be up to right now. He remembers those guys from the white snowfield, the only ones who actually hung around him when everyone else kept their distance. He starts thinking maybe the mission's done now. He thinks back to when he first opened his eyes in that endless white snow, and that mission window was just always there with him. At first he figured this had to be a dream, but the freezing air and those monsters proved it was all real. He remembered the main goal right away, make it through the week no matter what. He was out in the freezing cold and the mission window basically kept him on track, but once he left the snowy area, nothing new popped up for him to do. He's sitting there, realizing he's kind of bored now that everything's chilled out. He starts wondering if those missions were just something that only happened out on the white snowfield. He isn't totally sure about everything, but he gives the system window a quick thanks and figures he'll just do his own thing in this world. The next day, he rolls up to the mercenary guild and Rosa hands him a new job. He wants to know what kind of job it is. She lets him know it's basically an escort gig where they have to make sure the client gets to their spot without any problems. The people they need to protect are a woman and an older person. They're supposed to take them all the way to the capital city of the kingdom of, and the job isn't anything wild, just earring. He checks if that's everything. She nods but lets him know it'll take him at least a few days and he's on his own for getting ready to travel. He knows it's gonna take a ton of work, but she points out the cash is just as big. She straight up lets him know this request is trash, and if he's not down for it, he can just say no. He just grins knowing she's totally missing the point. That hint of doubt, that's what makes his plan solid. He checks out the request details one more time. Kingdom of it's right there, clear as day. He pauses, trying to remember where he's heard that name before. Out of nowhere, it hits him. From the Akasha family, was that merchant he ran into out on the snow plains. She let him know he'd be cool to drop by if he ever decided to visit them. He thinks this is exactly what he's been looking for, so he lets everyone know he's in. Out of nowhere, a digital pop-up shows up right in front of him. A bright blue window pops up right in front of him and totally catches him off guard. Mission number 785 popped up. He had to get the client all the way to the kingdom of. He just freezes, totally caught off guard by the mission window popping up out of nowhere. She spots how weirded out he looks and checks on him, worried something's off. The scene flips over too, as he catches the sound of someone sprinting nearby. There's a knock at the door and she's curious who it could be. The door swings open. Aaron bursts through the door out of breath. She spots him right away and calls out, her mind racing. Was it the trackers? It looked like they might be in trouble again. He smiles, letting her know the request went through. She's left kind of lost, not really sure what's going on. He starts telling her, barely able to hold back his excitement, that the only C-rank mercenary around here just took their job. She lights up right away, totally hyped, and wants to make sure she heard him right about the C-rank mercenary. He lets her know the news is real, says the meeting's set for tomorrow, and tells her she should rest up. She's totally on board and sounds excited. He checks out this random mission window that just popped up in front of him. The number 785 is stamped on it, along with all the info. The job is to get the client safely over to Kingdom. He just sits there deep in thought, trying to process everything. He's kind of thrown off seeing the mission pop up now after everything has been super quiet. He starts thinking maybe these missions aren't just for the white snowfield after all. He gets this sense that there's more going on than what's on the surface. While he's lost in thought, thunder suddenly crashes outside. That night, and Aaron just sat there, not saying a word, inside the mercenary building. She just can't get any sleep. All she can think about is what this mercenary dude is actually like. She pictures him with strong, sharp lines on his face. Maybe he was just marked up with scars. She gets kind of embarrassed, thinking that for some reason he's going to come off as cool. Someone's footsteps start getting closer. She nods at the person coming in. When she spins around, she's caught off guard. It finally clicks that the mercenary just showed up. He hangs back in the doorway, barely moving, just watching everything from the edge where the light hits. For a second she freezes up, nerves kicking in hard right before he walks through the door. He walks up and gives them a chill hello. She looks at him kind of nervous and tries to ask if he's the mercenary dude, but then just straight up passes out. Aaron just starts yelling, demanding to know who this guy even is. He looks around and realizes nobody's been this freaked out by him since he took down that demon a while back. He looks over at Rosa, checking if these are the people who brought him in. She nods and gets ready to introduce them. She lets everyone know that Barbarian Nim is the one who's got the job of showing them around. Aaron can't believe what he just heard. He gets heated, totally losing it over being called a barbarian, and right away says they need to swap out the mercenary. Rosa gives him a cold stare, like she's not having any of it, basically questioning if he's got a problem with what the mercenary guild decided. He immediately shuts it down. She lays it out straight for him. If he can't trust the guild's call, they're just going to cancel the deal and give his cash back. He starts to pull back, realizing he's kind of on edge, like he could blow up any second. Right then, she suddenly says she's on board. He didn't expect her to be that brave, and it honestly caught him off guard. She reaches out her hand to him, says her names, and lets him know she's ready to team up.
Lately, I've had a strong addiction to watching manhwa and manga recap videos. Every single day, I find myself binging one after another, losing hours and days doing absolutely nothing productive. And honestly, it's getting out of hand. So, maybe we can make these viral videos too. I mean, look at the views, the growth, the community these creators are building. It looks simple, right? But that's a trap. You go down this endless rabbit hole, spending money, losing sleep, hiring editors and writers from Fiverr and Upwork, and still feel like you've been robbed. Because don't forget how emotional the YouTube algorithm can be with making videos go viral. It's unpredictable, especially when the market's saturated, competition's relentless, and somehow other creators are dropping 10-hour videos daily while you're stuck trying to finish one. That's when I realized something had to change. So, I built the solution, the Webtoon Narrative Suite, a complete one-click system that handles everything from cropping, script narration, text-to-speech, image processing, and full video generation in one smooth process. Save money, reduce hours of work, and have a tool that only gives you straight results. Click on the link down below and experience it for yourself. And if you want even more tools to supercharge your YouTube recap journey, visit my Ko-Fi and Patreon pages where I drop weekly new tools designed to keep you ahead as AI continues to steal our jobs. So tap in now before you get left behind.